Mr. Topher Field!
Joining me now is that inspiring and brave Australian documentary filmmaker, Topher Field.
Melbourne, my home. What unfolded here shocked the world and caused many to wonder what happened to Australia. In the middle of it all were ordinary people, people like us. My name is Topher Field. I'm the director of Battleground Melbourne.
Topher is on a mission to empower people.
The only thing that limits government power is the limit of our obedience.
But we realized a deeper truth, that good people break bad laws.
Moral cowardice is the great scourge of our time.
We're here to take back the freedoms that were earned for us by the people that we built this shrine to remember.
This was a military checkpoint. They had the army on these checkpoints. And without irony, saying, papers, please. Our boys in blue wouldn't obey a government tyranny. Excuse me, they will.
Yes.
I understood that my arrest was coming, and I by then I was on the verge of a breakdown.
Hi everyone, Rukshan here, and quick video to alert you to the arrest of Topher Field.
The problem with Australians is not that so many of them are descended from convicts, but that so many are descended from prison officers.
I went as far on one occasion as to saying, yeah, you're absolutely right, I'm inciting. I'm inciting people to exercise their human rights.
And I will accept nothing less than freedom. Freedom for me, freedom for my children, and freedom for us all.
Well, hello and welcome to another Slow Chat, as they used to be called. These days, we're just calling them the podcast. Let me know where you're watching from. Swanee says good evening from Tasmania. Lovely to have you watching, Swanee. Baldy Jules Wilson. Not sure if that's it's meant to be. Anyway, it's an interesting name. Just given me a bunch of emojis there. Thank you, Baldy, for joining us. And keep the comments coming. People are obviously just getting the notification saying, hey, it's started. And lots of people are going to be jumping on and joining us. So keep those comments coming. Tonight is a night with a little bit of a difference, because I'll admit with some trepidation, I'm handing over the reins to someone that honestly, I actually don't know very well. I just know that he's someone who helps a lot of people to work through trauma, illness, and physical injury. He calls himself a healer. Sounds all a little bit airy-fairy to me, and I can tell you, if he starts getting me to sit in like pose positions and sniff crystals and all that stuff, I'll be out of here. Don't you worry, we're not going there. But I'm led to believe he's a man with some very, very good wisdom that is hopefully going to be helpful to me. Those of you that follow me closely will know I'm quite public about the fact that I have my ups and downs, and we're going to be talking obviously about all of that, not just to dwell in it and revel in, crawl around in the mud for a while, but to acknowledge it, that it's real, and then to talk about, well, how do we help ourselves and how do we help each other, and how do we take our current situation and make it less bad, ideally better, but at the very least, less bad. Good evening from New Zealand. Lovely to have you watching from the other side of the ditch. In Whyalla is Baldy. Lovely to have you. Good evening from Kilo. Jules, namaste. Okay, all right. Eugene says g'day. We've got, who's that? Carl from Newman in East Pilbara. And Ethan, of course, getting in early with his regular insults. Nice to have you as always, Ethan. Regular watcher and big fan. Leah is from Euroa. So keep those comments coming. We've got people piling in. Now, one thing that I have to get better at, because my wife gets very annoyed at me when I don't do this, is actually promoting my stuff. And because she's always like, hey, did you do the Slow Chat? Fantastic. How many people watching? Oh, fantastic. Did you mention your book? No, I forgot to mention my book. So in order to avoid the wrath of the wife, and fellas, you know that that's a very important thing that us men focus on every single day, avoiding the wrath of the wife. Let me mention my book. I have the book Good People Break Bad Laws. That's already out. You can order it right now from the website goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. And I have a new book coming out at the end of this year. It'll be out in time for Christmas. That is Good Christians Break Bad Laws. That is specifically about the theology of civil disobedience. And yes, I'll be looking at Romans 13, 1 Peter chapter 2:13. I'll be looking at Jesus and the tribute coin, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. I'll be looking into the Old Testament, the New Testament, church history, and so forth, and having a look and saying, well, how come some people say that we have to do whatever a civil government tells us, but actually when you look at the Bible and church history, that's not what's happened in practice. What's going on there? What is the right theological position regarding Christians and civil disobedience? That is the book that I'm working on right now, and that'll be out before Christmas. In addition to that, we just last night did week 5 of my 6-week Getting Your Head in the Game masterclass. This is basically where I've taken all of what I talk about when I do my speaking tours. So I speak regularly. I'm all over. I'm bouncing all over New South Wales and Victoria, and sometimes Queensland and South Australia, and every now and again WA. New Zealand hasn't had the pleasure of me coming and bloviating, so perhaps I need to fix that soon. Maybe I need to go and bloviate in New Zealand at some point in time soon. But obviously, as I talk to groups of freedom-loving people all over Australia, and I listen to their questions, and we have wonderful conversations before and after my talk, I learn a lot, and I understand a lot about where people are at and what they need and what they're looking for. And I've thought very deeply and long and hard about a lot of those issues. And tonight's podcast is a part of that. But honestly, the masterclass was me sitting down and going, what are the most important things that people need to understand better in order to be able to make better choices and live better lives and deal with the noise and deal with the trauma and the grief and everything else. And I am not a guru. I'm not an expert. I'm not claiming to be. But I'm simply trying to share what I have learned, and it is quite a lot. Now, don't take my word for it. Here are some of the things that people do in the course have said. Bridget has said that it's just brilliant information and super important realizations. Susie has said that she's already felt a shift and is enjoying the practical points and ideas. Greg said that he's delighted he joined and that he knew that I would give of myself more than anyone could reasonably expect. And there's just so many, I'm just reading various things that people have said. I'm so grateful. It's come at a good time in my life. Brilliant, empowering us with valuable skills, says Jenny. I consider myself privileged to be taking part, says another person. I thought it would be useful, but I had no idea how useful it would be. These are the things that people are saying about it. So what I would suggest is, if talking about things like focus, hope, faith, courage, community, and practical next steps is something that sounds like it could be useful to you, then I suggest you go to my website, goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com, and check that out. The live course is closed. That was 50 people only, and that's already that's closed. That's been going for 5 weeks now, so you can't join us for the last live week, but all 5 sessions are now up to be replayed, and you can get access to those via my website, goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. Now, Tracy makes a good comment here. I appreciate your honesty. Tracy says, nope, I'm negative as fuck, but I still want to listen to you, Topher. Tracy, I get where you're coming from, and I have my moments. I made a post the other day. In fact, it's probably worth me pulling that up. Let me pull up the post that it was actually the catalyst for us having this conversation between myself and Sean, who I'll introduce in just a minute. But let me just go to my Facebook page here and read the post that I wrote, which is the one that Sean responded to. If I can find it, I am scrolling down. Okay, so this is what I said. You guys can still see me, right? Hey, what am I doing? If I take that to there, I know how to do computer stuff. I swear I do. All right. Just getting it up now. Nope. And there it is. Okay. So what I said was, this year has been brutal, the toughest year of my life by some margin. And it's brought out the best in me, but also the worst. And sometimes the elapsed time between those two versions of myself is only a matter of days. From moments where I could truly say, yes, this is what life is all about, to not being able to make eye contact with myself in the mirror just days later, and then back again, and then back again. How come my best self, whom I love, seems so impossible to sustain, and my worst self, which I loathe, always manages to lure me with promises that it never keeps? And which one is really me, or am I neither? I don't have any profound wisdom for you. I'm just letting you know that you're not the only one. The only thing that I know is that God is faithful, and when I focus on him, myself matters less, and that's a good thing. I think maybe the key lies in letting go of myself altogether. And if I ever figure out how to do that and make it stick, then I'll be sure to let you know. In the meantime, just know that you're not the only one. All right. So that's just me processing in public. I'm not trying to hide and put up some image of perfection and someone who's got it all together. No, screw that. I'm broken. I'm hurting. I'm struggling in various ways. I'm winning in others, by the way. It's not all bad. I'm having a great time. Life's fantastic. Some days I'm struggling. And I want to do that in public. And I want to share that with you because I know that that's the reality of a lot of people's lives. And it's something that I don't think we talk about enough. Well, Sean read that post and reached out to me. And he's someone who has dedicated a couple of decades now to healing and to understanding what hurts people and how they can heal from that. So what we're going to do tonight's a little bit different. Duncan's commenting on the course, saying, I'm on the course. It's great value. I'm guessing that is insightful and opens your eyes to oneself. Thank you. I appreciate that. What we're doing tonight is a little bit different. I'm going to bring Sean on, and Sean is actually going to run it like it's one of his podcasts. So Sean's going to be in the driver's seat in just a minute or so's time. And we're going to bring him on, say hi, and then he's going to take it away. And he's going to run it as though he was doing a podcast. He's going to be asking me whatever questions he wants, exploring whatever topics he wants to, going down whatever rabbit holes he wants to. And that way, hopefully, what we're going to do is have a really open and honest and deep conversation about things that I wouldn't necessarily always lead a conversation towards when I'm interviewing other people. I don't want to make them uncomfortable, etc. I want to talk about the topics that are relevant to them. I'm not necessarily going to share all of myself if I'm the one doing the interviewing. That's obviously selfish and inappropriate in that context. So Sean has kindly agreed to be the one that's going to interview me. And of course, Sean's going to share his wisdom as well. But hopefully what this is going to lead to is a really real and deep and powerful conversation. So Kim says everyone in Melbourne is suffering from some form of PTSD, whether they admit it or not. Yep. I now have the piece of paper to prove it. I had to go and get a formal diagnosis for various reasons. I've got the piece of paper to prove it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think if you were in Melbourne especially, but even a lot of people outside of Melbourne, but certainly if you were in Melbourne, there's got to be some at least low level PTSD there. But there's also a lot of people that are just really facing hard times. We've got Ione, I think, Ione Chisholm. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Dude, we haven't even got a working toilet. I'm fully struggling with an elderly mum and a 20-year-old son with multiple conditions. I'm sorry to hear that. That's an incredibly tough hand to be dealt. So there's hundreds of people watching already, and there'll probably be over 1,000 by the time we're done here tonight that will be watching it live. Each and every one of us has our own story. Each and every one of us has our own situation, our own challenges that we're facing. So this isn't just about me, and it isn't just about Sean. This is about us sharing our trials and sharing that load, and then sharing what wisdom we have to be able to hopefully help each other to be able to walk this road. Okay, so that's what's happening. What I'm going to do, because I'm going to be actually handing this over to Sean for Sean to use as a podcast on his own channels later on. So I'm just going to take away that there. And I'm going to bring on Sean, and I'm going to say, hey, Sean, how are you? Take it away. And then we're going to be in Sean's hands for what is going to be, honestly, my heart is actually beating a little bit faster than usual. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie. I don't know where this is going to go. You and everyone watching, you're going to find out at the same time as me. So let's do this. Sean, how are you? Thanks for coming on, and please take it away.
Hello, everybody, and hello, Topher. Thanks for having me, mate. You hear me all right?
Certainly can.
That's excellent. Mate, what a build-up and what an intro. And I'm really interested to read your book, Good People Break Bad Laws, which is, what an awesome title. That's such a cool way to phrase it, because I think that's a good starting point for the topic, because, yeah, man, like, at what point do we just get told what to do? At what point does another adult have to do what they're told when it doesn't make any sense? And at what point are you a bad person by following those laws? You know, like, and where's the line? How do you know? And then it's a great question, man. And I really liked that title. I hadn't actually even observed that title very deeply until you said it just then. So yeah, go out and get that book, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great title, and let's unpack that together. But I thought the way we met, or the way we interacted, was really cool, because I've been observing your presence online, and mate, it takes a lot of courage to do what you do. So I really appreciate that. And I've only just started being a little bit public facing like recently, or in a way that anyone paid attention to, so it mattered. But yeah, I run a podcast. I've called it Not a Guru because, same as by the sounds of it in your book, you're not trying to be some professional expert that has it all figured out. I'm trying to be like a bit of a conduit for whatever wisdom worked for me and it helped me. I'm going to try to pass that on. And the best way to show appreciation for that which you've enjoyed or learned is to pass it on. So
yeah,
I appreciate
100%.
you, man. I appreciate you being in the public like that too. That must be scary in some ways. So thank you.
Oh, it brings its challenges, but it's just one of those things. Someone's got to do it, and you know, I'm one of those crazy people that says, "Well, someone's got to do it," and I'm a someone, so I'll go and do it.
Okay, that's a good place to start as well. So, what was the first moment that made you stand up and be that guy? When you wanted to be that guy, you were brave enough and logical enough to do it.
Well, it's funny because I started 15 years ago, long before any COVID stuff happened and all that sort of nonsense broke out. And it was actually by accident. So I've got a very blue collar background. I was driving a forklift in a warehouse, a refrigerated warehouse, earning actually the best money of my life, just about. And you know, I'd happily work night shifts and weekends. I was single. I was making bank, and really actually quite enjoying life because work stayed at work. I clocked off and walked out. You can't take a forklift home and move pallets around right at home. Work stayed at work. And it was just, I took it for granted. I really did. But my cousin, who also worked in the same place, yes, I'm so blue collar in my background. I got my cousin Bob working working the same job, and he comes in one day. He says, "Oh, Topher, you should audition for Project Next." And I said, "What's that?" And he told me about it. So I've got a little bit of an acting background. I used to do theater and stage work, and my cousin knew that I liked that sort of thing. And so Project Next was a project being run by the journalist Andrew Denton, and it was for the ABC, and they were looking for the next generation of news presenters, you know, writers, researchers, producers, all that sort of thing. And so in order to audition for Project Next, you had to submit a video. So I went, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a lark. I can make a video." My dad, by the way, was instrumental in the early days of Channel 31. So I grew up with a camera in my hand. I knew how to do audio, camera work, editing, you know, post-production, all that sort of stuff. I'd grown up doing that since literally before I was a teenager. And so I borrowed a camera and went out and I made a video, but I knew that the ABC are quite biased and I don't generally agree with a lot of the ABC's perspective. So I turned around and thought, well, I'm going to deliberately make a video that the ABC from an editorial perspective aren't going to like. It's a topic they're not going to like. And that way, if they do accept me into the show, then I know that I'm going to have editorial control because they've allowed me to come in saying something they don't like. So at the time, we were in the grip of the millennium drought. It was 2009, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. And we were on stage 3A water restrictions, and they were spending $1.4 billion on a desalination plant. And I thought that's a really dumb idea. And what we should do instead is put a dam on the Mitchell River, which is down in Gippsland in southeast of Australia. But I knew that would be desperately unpopular with the greenies at the ABC. So I thought, perfect, that's my video. So I went out and I made that video. I don't know, about 12-minute long video. Remember, this is 2009. A lot on the internet has changed since then. YouTube still had a duration limit. You couldn't upload videos of more than, I think it was 12 minutes or 13 minutes or something like that. And a lot of people didn't have internet fast enough to even watch a YouTube video in real time. They had to let it buffer and load first. I mean, I don't know how old you are, mate. I might be talking about ancient history as far as you're concerned, Sean. But this was real life. This is how we lived back then, back in the dark ages. And so I submitted my application via video and heard nothing back, which is normal in the TV industry. If they're not interested, you just never hear back from them. So after a couple of weeks after the deadline had passed, I went, well, I've got this video. What am I going to do with it? So I started up a brand new YouTube channel. I didn't even have a YouTube channel. I created a YouTube channel. I uploaded the video and I sent the link to my mum. And came back and had a look at it a few days later, or I don't know, a couple of weeks later. And my mum must have really liked it because it had about 30,000 views. And you got to keep in mind, this is 2009, early days of YouTube. Not a lot of people on it yet.
Viral for back then.
It's actually really viral for back then. Yeah. It's not a funny video of a cat falling off a bed. This is a 12-minute long, somewhat humorous, but mostly not very funny discussion of the pros and cons of a desalination plant versus a dam on the Mitchell River. And somehow it got all of that attention. And I'm a forklift driver working in a warehouse, right? That's all I am. And so people started to reach out to me and ask me to start making more videos on this topic and that topic. And can you help out with this topic? This issue over here, it's really important. And I'm sitting there going, what the hell, guys? I'm a forklift driver. Go and like talk to a journalist or talk to your local politician or talk to somebody that cares, right? You know, the old ads, call someone that cares. It's kind of like, guys, I'm a forklift driver. I auditioned for a TV show that I didn't get into. Can we all just move on with our lives? And eventually someone reached out to me and said, hey, Topher, have you heard of the North-South pipeline? I said, no, and I don't really care. And she said, listen, will you meet with me? And I will present to you what's going on. It's an even worse story. It's an even bigger travesty than the desalination plant. And I went, okay, fine. So I drove out to where she lived in Yei. And so I drove out to Yei and I met with her. And she had newspaper clippings and Hansard, records and all sorts of different things. And she laid out this tapestry of information in front of me about this thing called the North-South pipeline that was going to take irrigation water down from northern Victoria and use it up in Melbourne. And I looked at it and went, this is an idiotic idea if you're right. If you're right and you're not lying to me and you're not deceiving me and this is actually the truth, then this is a terrible idea. So I said, I'll make you a deal. I'm going to go home and I'm going to try and prove you wrong. And if I can prove you wrong, then I'm not going to make the video. But if I can't prove that you're wrong, I'll make the video. I'll make a video about this. And sure enough, I couldn't prove her wrong. I could not find literally not even a single fault with any of the claims that she'd made or the information that she'd passed on to me. All of it was true. And so I had to keep my word and I made the second video. And in a sense, that was really the moment where I kind of sort of Topher, whatever Topher is, I'm not even really still 15 years later, I'm still not sure. But whatever this is, was kind of born in that moment because the first video was just an audition for a TV show on a lark from my cousin. Whereas this was the first time I said that issue matters to me and I care enough, I'm going to make a video about this. And one thing led to another. I dealt with water issues in various forms. I ended up spending a lot of time focused on the Murray-Darling Basin Authority and the Water Act of 2007 and how that's devastated our irrigation regions in the Murray-Darling Basin. I did videos on taxation, overregulation, freedom of speech. And I was just trucking along doing that. It was a hobby. In the intervening years, I'd gotten married, I'd had kids. And this was an outlet because my wife doesn't want to hear me talking about politics. So this was the outlet. This was the conduit by which I could vent to the world and not have to bore my wife to tears. And then along came COVID, and that's where things went crazy.
Yeah, that was a crazy time indeed. That's an understatement. Yeah. That's a crazy journey, man. Wow. And it's crazy how you just kind of got pulled into it by so many other forces and you kind of found your calling in a way. That's awesome.
Well, I don't know if I have found my calling, but I found something that people seem to want me to do more of, and I'm doing my best to try and do more of it and figure out how I can do more of this whilst also honoring my family and earning money and paying bills and all of that. And I'm very much on that journey at the moment, man. I haven't figured that out yet, but I'm trying.
Have you seen that? I think they're called Venn diagrams, where it's like you got a circle and it's like things I'm good at, things that make me money, things that people need. And then the line goes right through the middle and squirrels around them all.
Misses all of them. Yeah. I do feel a little bit like that most days.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. It feels like that at the beginning, but I think there's a few ways to rein that in, and I'll talk about that now. But yeah, I think it's important to highlight the main thing that separates, a good decision from a bad decision is there's a level of logic involved. And we're all just trying to navigate with our logic. But there's an interesting analogy. It's like if an ant and an elephant approach an apple, they're both going to have totally different opinions on reality. Like an ant's going to be like, whoa, a mountain of food. And an elephant's going to be like, done. Like it's gone. The ant's going to be like, I was going to take that back and feed my whole family, bro. And you just ate it. And the elephant's going to be like, what ant? There's no ant. I don't even see the ant. So the ant being annoyed at the elephant is a waste of energy. The elephant doesn't even know you're there. And a lot of the time we can get angry at an elephant that can't even hear us, and it just feels so frustrating. So it's important to recognize that in every situation, there's many different levels of logic. And the more we can see higher levels, we can free our heart from that ant trying to get angry at a freaking gigantic elephant.
So I talk about that a little bit in a very different sense, but it really is the same principle. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people that have sort of woken up. That's the term we use. I don't love it as a term, but that's the term that we use. People have kind of woken up through COVID and come to realize that we can't just blindly trust government and bureaucrats and politicians and everyone else to have our best interest at heart. And what can happen for a lot of people is that they quickly become that ant shaking their fist, because they start going down rabbit holes of, oh, it's the World Economic Forum, and oh, it's the lizard people, and oh, it's the Illuminati, and oh, it's the this and it's the that. Now, what they're obsessed with is whether or not this is true. And the point that I make back to them is it's actually completely irrelevant. Because if you can't find source documents to prove that it's true, not just someone's hearsay, and or even if it were true, it wouldn't actually change how you live day to day, then it's irrelevant. It's like shouting at the elephant, right? It's not that it doesn't exist or that it doesn't matter and that someone might be able to do something about it. You spending all of your energy consumed by it means that you're not spending that energy actually making your life better, your community better, your family better, your situation better. We all have very limited resources. And this is one of the real focuses of the first week of my masterclass, which is the topic is focus, is not allowing yourself to get dragged away shouting at the elephant. You know, getting angry at the elephant for picking up the apple. Well, I'm sorry, that's done. That's happened. Keep your focus where it can actually make a difference for you and your family.
I think I've just, in the first running of your podcast, I've got people thinking you hate elephants. Get you cancelled in one episode, bro. Animal rights activist.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's funny. So one of the epiphanies that I had years ago, you know, I attracted a lot of hate early on, particularly when I started talking about climate change. I attracted an enormous number of haters. I used to have people, I lived in Fitzroy at the time. I refer to it as my years living behind enemy lines, you know, just living in Fitzroy and being a sort of a libertarian political commentator. I was not a popular man. And I would get a lot of hate on the internet, and it used to bother me. It used to make me feel bad. I used to, you know, get inside my head, and I'd be like, no, I have to argue with this person and convince them that I'm not the evil person they've just characterized me as. And one day I had this epiphany, and I went, hang on, it literally doesn't matter what I say on the internet. Someone is going to be mad at me. You know, like you say, someone's decided that I hate elephants because I told you not to be the ant, right? And I realized the thought experiment that I did was I said, if I post on the internet, I like kittens, sooner or later, I mean, the internet loves kittens, right? Everyone loves kittens, right? No. If enough people see that post, someone's going to come along and be like, "Oh, you hate dogs. Dogs are better." Then another person's going to
kittens, purebred kittens of a certain breed. I bet you don't love.
Yeah, right. And you get some, breeding animals is cruelty. Someone going, "Oh, we have no right to own animals. They're sentient beings as well." Like you could say, "I like kittens," and given enough time and enough people seeing it, someone's going to hate you for it. And that was really liberating for me, was just this realization. The only way to avoid having someone hate you is to say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing. And if you're going to stand for anything at all ever in your life, someone's going to hate you, and therefore just accept it. Just accept it. That's just how it is, and don't let it bother you. And that's been really liberating for me.
I often wonder what would be worse: have people like actually voice that they don't like you, or have everyone in the world ignore you completely? And no one, would you be lonely? Would you rather hate? Like the worst thing in prison is to be sent to solitary confinement. And that's like, you're away from everybody that is potentially criminals. And you're like, oh, that's worse. Wow. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
What was the band that had the lyric in their song, "I don't care what you think as long as it's about me"? Was that the Killers or... Yeah, someone in the comments is going to come up with this very soon and be able to tell me what that band was. You know, I don't care what you think as long as it's about me. And that is true in more areas of life than people realize. And it sounds very egotistical, okay? But think about it. What does a company want you to do? What does Coke want you to do? I'm thirsty. Oh, I'd like a Coke, right? They don't care what you think as long as it's about them. And it's the same as politicians. They just want you thinking about them. You can be arguing about why you hate them, but actually the fact that you're still thinking about them is what really actually matters to them. And unfortunately, there's a really toxic side to that in the entertainment industry and for influencers online and all sorts of things like that as well. But it is a necessary thing for people like myself and increasingly yourself as you go further down this rabbit hole and more people become aware of your existence. You have to just, Fallout Boy, thank you. Someone in the comments just come out, Fallout Boy. I don't care what you think as long as it's about me. And if I can get inside people's heads, even if that happening makes them hate me and lash out at me, then they've actually read what I said or listened to what I said. And I've actually had the opportunity to have some level of impact on them.
Well, I'm going to switch genres and quote Nas, a hip hop artist. He said, some say hatred is confused admiration. So flip that around.
Yeah.
They're like jealous of your sport. They wish they had the power to do what you do. Something you're doing, it ticks them, and that's a good thing, man, because at least they're talking about you.
Yeah, I've got yet, and it's a pretty continuous stream, but I've got someone in my inbox on Facebook right now wanting to have this big argument with me, and I love to feed them because then they come onto my page and they comment, right? So I'll have arguments with them in the chat because it fires them up, and then they stay on my page and they feed the algorithm. And this particular chap, it always goes in the same direction in the end. And I know that this is when I'm going to lose this guy soon. He's probably only got a couple of weeks of trolling left before he gives up. When they go to the argument of you're just a nobody, right? You know, you're just an attention-seeking nobody. No one cares, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you spent the last 3 months of your life frequenting my page to leave comments, right? If I'm a nobody, what does that make you as someone who's invested all of this time and energy commenting on the page of a nobody, right? You clearly don't actually believe that I'm a nobody. And so I just thank them for their service and just say, look, I really appreciate the way that you've helped me to move up the Facebook algorithm and the ranking and helped more people to see my content. That's all it is.
Take the win from it. Yeah. It's interesting. People like yourself, like standing up like that, like you say. I'm going to give a shout out to another person that really was a pillar of strength. He runs a market here in Sydney. He's called Pete's Organic Market. And during COVID, man, they do you remember him? Do you know him at all?
Pete Evans?
Pete Melhov, I believe his name is. He
okay, I don't know.
Mate, during COVID, he like put a big sign up saying 99% survival rate. Like he was just telling the truth blatantly. Yeah. And when they made him do the QR code, he refused to do it at first. People dobbed him in. And so when they came back in, I believe he set it up so the QR code took him to the privacy information page when they scanned it. So he was like, and when they came in to arrest him, he said, scan it. And they scanned it. And they're like, what's this? He's like, that's the law you're making me break by trying to make me collect people's data like that. And they ended up arresting him. And like, mate, cops with guns and masks on frog marched this guy, and he's a tall guy and he's pretty strong, so he's pretty intimidating, but he's actually like a really lovely guy. He sells organic fruit and veggies. Like he's a lovely dude. But he was yelling at them like, what are you afraid of? Like, why are you having masks and guns? I'm not sick. What are you scared? He's wearing like not much clothes. He's like, he's not intimidating. And he's been a pillar of logic for me in a way. And he said something really interesting. He said in nature, no matter what animal, what species, in every life, we have the same job, and that is to protect our survival, protect our health. If an animal gets even a little bit injured, they get a cut and they're out in the wild, that could be a death sentence. So they have to be so protective of their body. So they're in like a moving meditation, martial art all day, every day, or it's life or death. We have a much easier life. We don't even have to go get water. It comes out of the tap. Like, can you imagine if you had to hunt every day? Like how hard life would be? Like, whoa, man. So like we have a very different life, and we have to survive in a different way. And all the like ability I learned came through a thing called Qigong, a martial art. And Qi means energy, and Gong means training or observing. So you have to observe what energies are influencing. And one of the craziest things about COVID was the lack of intellectual bravery or courage. Like it was just nowhere to be seen. And if you even asked a question, you were just slandered, and it was like, it was just so frustrating because I'm someone who doesn't like being confused, and I was perpetually confused by the lack of logic in government messaging, in media. And I've been in the fitness industry. So a little of my history for your viewers. I started a PT business in 2006 and immediately got to work trying to fix people's body. And like people were having spinal surgeries and like coming back not any better. And I've had it. If you go to my website, healingcenterglobal.com, I've actually got a few pretty cool testimonials. But like I've helped people that have had 2 spinal surgeries. They're lined up for a 3rd one. And I come in like 3 or 4 days, get them like they forget they have back pain. One of my testimonials literally says that. Like, and I got flown to Brazil to fix a guy's back off that. I've had a little Instagram video go viral, and I got flown to fix this guy's back. He's in America. He's on decent medical insurance. He's had 2 surgeries, line up for a 3rd, and I fix him. And he's looking at me like, how does that work, man?
Yeah, it's crazy.
The world doesn't observe the cause and effect of things that are happening. And the medical system makes a lot of money off not observing the cause and effect. And that Pete Malhoff guy explains it in a really good way. He says, we are being predated upon. People are trying to take money, take our health, get energy. And it's like in nature. You can be an animal, get predated upon. If you don't go to the water hole and like pay attention, you're going to get eaten. We've got to be a little bit sharp. They're trying to, like, our food's not great. We've got to pick better food. You've got to go actually find good food. So Pete's Organic Market for those of you in Sydney. But yeah, you've got to like go to a bit of extra effort to get what you value. And if that's your health, you'll find it.
And you definitely shouldn't drink alcohol.
Well, there's another idea I'm going to bring to it, and it's called middle way. Like, you kind of try to enjoy things with a function. And if it's like, if you're going to, like, man, I had one friend and he was very strict on his nutrition. Very strict. Like, he tried to eat as clean as possible, and he died in his 40s of a cancer, you know, like he was really health conscious. And in some ways there's other things that aren't just physical that can take us down. So you've got to manage that. And in Taoism, so this goes back to the logic. So the thing that made me so confused and so frustrated is I have my own standard of how the body can work and how to heal it. And I watch doctors not care about that. Like, I've fixed people and osteos have like called me up and gone, yeah, what you've done is actually really dangerous. It's a temporary fix. They're going to be in pain again. And I'm like, I'm going to teach them how to train it so it's strong again. Like, I've gotten them pain free. How are you judging my work? Like, so there's no logic there. They don't care. There's no logic in that system.
One of the really consistent themes that's coming out and becoming very, very clear for me is the regularity with which people, others, even the government, can love the results of something and still fight you tooth and nail over the method, right? And we see this in child raising, we see this in education. So I was homeschooled, all right? And all the studies show homeschooling leads to better outcomes, right? It's universal, worldwide. Homeschooling by parents that actually give a rat's, I'm not talking about negligence, I'm talking about homeschooling, leads to better outcomes for kids. And people can see that data and say, yes, that's true, but, and they want to have an argument with you about the method, even though they can see the result. And you're talking about osteos there. Even though they can see the result, they want to tell you what the method.
I don't want to be cancelled for hating on osteos. Some osteos are awesome. Some are, it's anything. It depends on the intention of the person involved. But in general, a lot of systems that I see in the world, they don't address the cause. They just try to find like a one fix solution. And there's a cool analogy in Chinese medicine where they say, like, sometimes Western medicine can be like, oh, if a plant's leaves are going brown, instead of checking the soil and then checking the sun and then checking the airflow and giving it water, they'll just paint the leaf green. And that's like taking a painkiller, like Nurofen for a headache. So they give you a one fix solution when all these other causes need to be addressed. They don't care about that. And the amount of people I've fixed just by addressing that underlying cause long before COVID, I saw that. And I was like already a little bit of my own. I was a bit different because I did things different to everybody because I'd started observing. Like, if you look into what humans ate before they started making money off selling us food, it's very different to what we get told to eat. Like, and I grew up as a kid, I was a little bit overweight and I wanted to be an athlete. So I started seeing the Iron Man Nutrigrain ads. So I started smashing Nutrigrain. Bro, I nearly gave myself diabetes at the age of 12. Like, and so my journey into becoming a PT came through that. Like, I was really overweight and I was like, well, that's not working. So I scrapped their logic and went chicken and toast. That was all I ate for a year and I shredded, bro.
So I was in the infantry for a couple of years, and so I learned real world fitness, practical fitness. It's not aesthetic fitness, but real world stamina, strength, etc. And then, having left the army, I started to pursue acting a little bit, and I had to get into aesthetic shape and look good. And so gym time and eating really clean and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I was able to be very, very disciplined. This is when I lived in Fitzroy. I was in an apartment building. There was a gym in the basement of the building and a pool where I could do laps in the morning and do gym sessions 6 days a week. And I was cycling lots, and I was still working at the warehouse back then. So I was doing physical work as well and eating really, really well. I ended up in really fantastic shape. And then I got married. I stopped doing the physical job and I started doing a desk job and a computer job. and got comfortable in life a little bit and started enjoying, more cheese and more sort of fatty sort of stuff. And I love my carbs. I love a big dish of pasta. I just there's nothing better. And so I started to put on weight. Then come 2020 and COVID and all the nonsense, I was just stress eating. And then I started drinking extremely heavily. I was basically an alcoholic for about 18 months. And of course, there's a lot of calories in that, not to mention everything else. And so I started stacking on weight. I got up to about a peak of about 120 kilos. And it was about the middle of last year. I just went, you know what? I'm not happy and I want to start losing weight. But I made the decision, a little bit like what you said earlier, go the middle way, right? I didn't want to go back to the extreme clean eating. I know I can do it. I've done it before. But now I'm a dad with 3 kids. I want to eat meals with the family. I want to eat food alongside them, and I want to be eating the same food as them. And I don't want to be making life difficult or antisocial for the family. So all I did was I switched out no more cereal for breakfast, eggs instead, a very small lunch. I just keep the portion size. I'll eat whatever it is, but it's just very small lunch. And then I'll eat, a pretty clean dinner with more of a focus on the proteins rather than the carbohydrates. And I'm down, I think now I'm down about 17 kilos. I'm still just over 100 kilos. And that's just over a year of just letting the weight, about, I don't know, a kilo a month, I guess that works out to be roughly. And it hasn't been taxing. It hasn't been a drain or work. It's just been a taking that middle way, like you said.
Well, it's interesting. And I think this is a big part of what is the problem. And we kind of get told how to view things in a weird way. So a lot of people think they talk from an angle of being, oh, I'm overweight. And it's just like, there's the sub message is there's too much of you. Well, I come from the other angle, man. I'm like, no, you're fine. You're just under muscled. We need to build up all the little muscles that make up your body. And they're little hearts, man. Like your calf, when you walk, your calf pumps the other end of your leg, and that forces blood in and out of your leg. The reason people have heart attacks isn't because they're unfit. It's because their heart's trying to do the work of all these sedentary muscles, not assisting. We're big sponges. We're meant to move, man. We're meant to run and hunt and catch food or something. So the idea that we've been told we're overweight is like now we restrict food because there's too much of us, when in fact what we need to do is intake proper nutrients, because then you'll feel these energy kicks and you'll want to go do everything. You'll be inspired. But we get like a little bit on the back foot and we're like, oh, I'll eat this because I had a big night and I did that and I'm going to drink there and I'm going to go on this thing. And it's like, you got to get on the front foot and go, no, I'm going to give my body good nutrients and then I'll handle alcohol better if I drink, or then I'll, be in a better place to go and eat that crap food when I do have to. But try and be on the front foot is my view on it. Like, I feel like that's a better angle. But to get on the front foot of being like muscled in every joint protects you as you get older too. And it burns calories. Just do a little bit of weight training every day. Like, it doesn't have to be intense even. Just activate your muscles and you get less injuries. It's the best, man. It's just like, I'll show you. I'm building an app for all of this, so I'll share that with you.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. No, well, I mean, the only exercise I'm doing at the moment is I do at least once a day. I do a walk. I live on a hill, and it's a pretty steep hill. It's about 70 meters above the town that we're looking at, and so I'll walk down to the edge of town and back every day. And the last part of the walk's properly steep. I'll do that at least once a day, but it's not a lot of exercise. I can do the trip there and back in 40 minutes, but I'm doing that every day, and then eating a little bit cleaner. But I think in addition to what you've said, the other thing that we get wrong is that we've attached stigma and this assumption of pain to both the gym and exercise and also to eating better. The association is, oh, I need to go on a diet. Oh, you poor thing. That's going to be horrible. You're going to have to suffer all this time. And that was exactly what I didn't want to do. And why I took the approach I did. You'd be familiar, I'm sure, with the 80-20 rule. Right, this idea that you'll get about 80% of your result from the first roughly 20% of your effort. If you want the 100% result, well, that's where you have to put in the other 80% of the effort to really get there, right? And so I just figured, what if I just play the 80-20 rule in my favor in lots of areas at once? So the 80-20 rule of portion size reduction. I'm not going to try and eat super small. I'm just going to do the 20%, right? The easy side of that. The 80-20 rule of exercise. I'm not going to go and smash myself every day and come away with aching muscles. I'll just do the easy, but I'll do it consistently every single day. Intermittent fasting, reducing the window of time over which I eat, have my breakfast later, have my dinner earlier. Again, 80-20 rule. And by having the 80-20 rule stacking up in multiple areas all at once, you get a good result actually quite painlessly. I don't feel I'm not looking forward to going back to eating the way I used to. I don't plan to ever go back to eating the way I used to. I'm happy with this. This is perfectly sustainable.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's the thing. Finding something that works for you, and then just gradually making little improvements as you go. I think that's a cool way to look at it. But the crazy thing was, like, for my whole career, I've been the guy that teaches health, and then that whole event happened, and all of a sudden, everyone's screaming at me what I need to do, and I'm like looking around, like, what happened? Like, what do you mean? I've got people like yelling at me what I'm got to do, and I'm like, I mean, I'll make that choice. I'm pretty conscious of my health. I'm going to make that choice. Like, I'm going to look into it. Don't worry. I've got this. Like, you haven't even looked into seed oils yet. Don't even start with me.
I loved having obese health ministers all over the world standing up, telling us how we had to do X, Y, Z for our health. It's the funniest thing. You mentioned a little while ago, energy, right? And one of the things that became really apparent to me, I mean, one of the maxims that, you know, is a Bible verse as well, but it's a maxim that I think is really important in life, is you will know them by their fruits. You can, when you observe the outcomes that come as a result of something, an idea or a person or what have you, you can learn something about the nature of that thing. And when the COVID scare came in and the government acted to keep us safe, it had such a devastating effect on people, their mental health, their energy, if you will. I would say there was a spiritual component to it. I just think there is just such a darkness to Melbourne now. And of course, there's going to be different people who have different perspectives on what that means and what that looks like. I'm a Christian, so I come from that perspective. But you could see so quickly that the fruit of what was being done was absolute devastation, confusion, like you said. Sorry.
I've got to stop you there. I'm very careful with words. I can't let you call what they were fruit. That's a weed, brother. That is a weed. It doesn't take any farming or cultivating of the heart to create that level of lies, greed, whatever you want to call it. The power that drove that was not cultivated through any care, love, or anything of skill. It's pure greed and just automatic weeds festering out of fertile soil. There was no logic in any way that made sense except something out of greed and corrupted power or something. Like, it was just money. You can call it whatever you want, but I think it doesn't matter. There's all these different forces trying to predate us, and we have to wake up. It's not. I don't like letting other forces control me at all. I let that happen when I was a kid, and I got overweight trying to be an Iron Man eating Nutrigrain, when what I should have been done is running down and swimming in the ocean. Like, I was trying to take a shortcut. I admit it. But I was a kid and I was tricked, man. These companies, they like target during cartoons like Iron Man food. Yeah. And you got like Trevor Hendy eating 14 Vitabits. Like, it's quite crazy when you think about it. But nature's not fair, man. Like, if you try and look at nature and go, what's fair or not, to a zebra getting eaten by a lion sucks, but to the lion, that's survival. So this is life. There's good and bad, and that's what we observe in yin and yang, is like everything that's bad has a little bit of good, and everything that's good has a little bit of bad. And getting obese, getting overweight as a kid was bad, but it led me to become a PT, which was something that I love, and it gave me an avenue to share something that I'm deeply passionate about, which is like helping people and getting rid of suffering, mostly. Like, any kind of suffering, turn that to joy. That's a win, man. Like, and these forces are trying to predate our joy, and we don't have much time on this earth. And the more time we spend in pain, that's the less time we have in joy. And like, if we can, let's flip that. I think that's important. So like, yeah, it's frustrating, but we're not going to yell at that elephant, because I mean, he can't hear us, and we're yelling at but what you can do is, like, you know, take like control back. Like, don't let people have control of your feelings. Don't give them that. Like, there's nothing more satisfying than when someone is expecting you to be hurt and you smile at them and go, no, bro, I'm fine. I'm actually really strong. How are you? Because I know you did that out of desperation, because you were not handling the situation well. And I think if more people had the intellectual strength to stand there when someone said, oh, we have to do this, and they went, why? That doesn't make logical sense. But no one really knew enough, and I guess no one expected to have to do that. Like, you kind of just putt along and think these systems are in place to keep us, you know, law and order. But mate, there was nothing logical about that, because I want to know who was the first person that went, oh, there's a virus, we found it. You're like, who? Get me that person. I want to talk to them. How did they know it was that? What made you test that person finally? Like, because I got it. I've had worse flus. I wouldn't have thought to test that any more than anything else. And I didn't take anything. It was just me floating along after a stack on my skateboard.
So do you want the scary version? Do you want the conspiracy version? That the key conspiracy that I think might actually have some legs on this.
You want to talk about the elephant?
let's observe the elephant. We don't have to shake our fist at it. No. So here's the one theory that I think does kind of unify everything, and for me it fits. That is that they were obviously doing gain of function research. We know that. That's been acknowledged now. That was US funded.
Anything was back, you know it's true.
Yeah. And they outsourced that to China because it was shut down in America after a couple of near miss issues that they had in the 90s there. And it either leaked accidentally or deliberately. That I don't know. But here's the bit that I go, that's really interesting. Why was it mostly the English-speaking countries that went way, way, way too far? Right now, some European countries did as well. Non-English-speaking European countries did as well. But it was the UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and depending on the state, the US. Now, why do those 5 countries sound familiar? Oh, that's right. Five Eyes, the intelligence sharing. Here's the theory. The gain of function research was being done for military purposes by the US government. It leaked, and they said one of the things that we've been modifying to try and make it more deadly is now on the loose, not realizing yet that it actually wasn't that effective. And so they then, through their intelligence backdoor, told the other countries, this is really freaking serious. Like, pull out all the stops, do everything. And they responded accordingly. And that would potentially explain some of the initial overreaction. I think that then what you get on top of that is the opportunism and the money that the big pharmaceutical companies spotted. And that's why you get the suppression of actual treatments to reduce symptoms and save lives and so forth, so that they could give the emergency use authorizations. There's a lot more that kicks in after that. But to explain that initial overreaction based on so little, as you say, it was almost indistinguishable from a regular flu and less bad than 1969 and other years that we've had in some years in my lifetime. Why the overreaction? Well, the theory is that because actually Western governments, Five Eyes governments, knew that it was a bioweapon that had leaked, and they hadn't yet figured out that it didn't really work all that well.
Look, man, I find it really hard to even know where to start observing all that. And that's, I'm not going to even try and unpack the elephant in the room. It's like, I'm open to any of it. I'm not saying yes or no to any of it. I'm just like, I just take it all in at this stage because the difference, like there's a saying, the difference between a conspiracy theory and reality is about 6 months or something, but there's actually a really a cool way to observe logic. And it's that like I just said, the ant and the elephant analogy, that's what we call two-way logic, where one person has one-way logic, but if you're smart, you look and go, oh, there's potential for two-way logic, right? Even higher is to go, there's even a third-way logic or many-way logic. And then there's a logic that isn't limited by time. So you try to observe, what's a more lengthened out logic and stuff like that. So I've been doing that for a long time. And when that whole thing hit, I was just like, there is zero logic from any time, blah, blah, blah. So when you say when this started, right? Life is a system of cause and effect. It's like a circle. You can't say where it started, where it stopped. Like the whole chicken and the egg thing, which was the first chicken to start the circle turning? And so the same with this situation, it wasn't born of one event. I think the idea that they convinced us to eat neutral grain, the idea that kids should be sold that, whoever signed off on that.
The food pyramid. The food pyramid, the ultimate lie.
Yeah, and the seed, the vegetable oils and the cholesterol myth and all that. There's so many so that what you learn is there's a veil of logic and there's a veil of reality. And you're aware of what level you're aware of. Like if you're not aware of many layers, you just take what's given to you. Like I remember during that whole period, I went up to my mum's house and she was sitting watching the same TV channel and she kept going, oh, there's 4 more cases. And then an hour later, they'd report the same, oh, there's 4 more cases. I'm like, no, that's the same 4. And then an hour later, it was like, oh, there's 8. And I'm like, no, it's the same 4 that you first said, Mum. It's not healthy to be fixated on worry and fear. Like you've got to get out and create health. You can't be on the back foot trying to defend yourself from sickness. And you got to go forward. Like the best defense is attack. So one, have your own standard of logic and like really value something like your health and don't let people convince you, oh, it's fine. Like doctors used to x-ray pregnant women until babies came out deformed and they were like, maybe we shouldn't do that. But before that, they made it like protocol. Like you had to x-ray the baby. Like, man, there's been so many medical malpractice negligence and we're just supposed to forget that. Like I get frustrated with the idea that I'm weird for having questions. Like it's controversial that I want to filter my drinking water because I don't know what's in the pipes in the house I'm renting. Like, why is that controversial? It's like people think I'm strange and I'm happy to be strange because the average person isn't always that healthy, you know? So it's like trying to raise that standard of health for myself is about sticking to a standard. And I think during COVID, like, man, it would have been nice if some people like yourself were more like you, like would actually stand up and go, no, man, like you can't tell us what to do. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And it's interesting that there is a assumption built into most people that the middle is more likely to be correct than either side. You know, oh, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Well, that can be true. Sometimes the truth does lie somewhere in the middle, depending on the particular issue. But it can also be true that that you got one side here and another side here, and the truth is all the way over there. Like there's no guarantee that the truth is anywhere near either side, let alone in the middle of any particular argument. And so people have this kind of default response and this normalcy bias. Essentially, the truth lies somewhere within the range of ideas that I've been exposed to. Very rare is the person that is able to say, I actually have come to a conclusion that is my own, that has not come from anyone. It's nothing that I've ever heard from anyone else. Very rare is that person. They're usually hated when they're alive and then revered after they're dead. That's what usually happens. They're the original thinkers, the different thinkers. And that's where what you're talking about with the media becomes so incredibly important, because people feel compelled to have to choose their opinion on a subject from somewhere within the range of opinions they've been exposed to, and by default from somewhere near the middle of the bell curve of opinions that they've been exposed to. And just during something like COVID, when we know all the censorship was happening, they were trying to make people feel mad for wanting to know what was in a jab before that thing went into their body, for wanting to be able to get outside and enjoy some sunshine. They're trying to tell you that you're mad for that. And they were so successful at convincing a lot of people of that, because by controlling what was on the internet and by controlling what was on people's TVs, people then felt compelled to have to choose their opinion from somewhere in the middle of the bell curve of what they were seeing on the telly every day. So original thinking is now a very dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, you got to be careful what questions you ask, like how you ask them. But I'm like trying to find the joy in it. Like, I had a friend, a student actually, she trains with me Tai Chi, and one of the things we learn in Tai Chi is this idea of harmony. And it's like when a force comes at you, you don't want it to guide you, because then you're not free. You actually get pulled by it. But a big, powerful force like an elephant, you can't necessarily fight it. So it's the idea of not with, not against. You find a way around it and like trick it, like go that way. So with COVID, or with a big power like that, anything like that, what I've learned since, and I learned this through that whole event. I was terrible at the time. I was really like, it was a big learning moment for me. Like I couldn't like travel, and they locked the bed, but I couldn't surf. That's one of my biggest outlets is surfing. I was like flipping out, man. They tried to like bark at us for trying to go swimming. I was like, what is the problem here? But when a big problem like that comes, you try to observe what's the goal of that big power. And once I figured out what it was, I just was like, well, I'm just not going to do that. I don't have to worry about anything. I'm just not doing that. Like, and for me, it was okay. I could do that. But for other people, it was like, yeah, I get it. It was crazy. But at the end of the day, like, you'll always find a way. We're much stronger than we realize. Like if you stay calm and breathe and just focus on just staying relaxed to observe opportunities. Like you pivoted perfectly, bro. Like you pivoted through all of that. Like, you know, that's a wisdom, that's an ability, and you carry that. And we have to all like trust we have that power at some level, you know?
So I followed the same philosophy, but I have a different terminology for it. My terminology for it actually comes from the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, which went down in the years. There was a few different waves of it that happened in the years before COVID. And they had a philosophy that guided their protest movement that was be like water.
Yeah, nice.
Now, what happens with water, if you strike it, it gets splashed out of the way, it moves, it gives way, and then the thing that struck it is removed or sinks or whatever, and the water just flows right back in. And within moments, you would never know the water had been struck. Yeah, there might be ripples, there might still be an ongoing impact, but there's no hole left behind. It hasn't really done any damage. And so they had this philosophy of be like water, and they would plan these protests, and they were communicating on Telegram, and this was in the early days of Telegram, and governments hadn't really figured out what to do about it yet. And they would show up, almost flash mob protests, but we're talking hundreds of thousands of people at a time because of the density of the population there in Hong Kong. And then the riot squad would show up, and they'd show up with the water cannons and everything else. And every instance was different, but as often as not, they would dissolve and disappear and then reappear in some other part of the city. And now the cops are having to chase them and redeploy and everything else. And if you watch my lives, because I used to go live during the protests in Melbourne, and even from the very early ones where there were only a few dozen of us there sometimes, through to all the way through to the end, the big one where we had hundreds of thousands of people there, and most of the protests in between I was at. And I was narrating, and I was talking about tactically what I was thinking and what I was observing, what I was concerned about, watching what the police were doing, how they were positioning themselves, watching what the mood of the crowd was. Because if the crowd gets too heated, idiots go and do stupid things. And that's terrible for us from a moral perspective, because now people amongst our number have done actual harm, and we don't want that for just from moral culpability. But also it's terrible optics. It gives the media, the attack angle they want. It gives the premier an excuse to bring out even more force next time, etc. And so as I would be in these crowds, I was just narrating what I was thinking and observing what's happening down laneways. What are my exits? If we get hit by the mounted police right now, and they come out swinging with batons, which direction am I going in? What if they come from behind? What if they come from the side? Constantly being aware of the surroundings. And that's a little bit of that vigilance that you were talking about, sort of wild animals having to be really conscious of how they're moving through their environment, because at any time there could be a leopard behind the tall grass kind of deal. And that's how I had to live for that time. But I will say that's part of why I'm struggling now, because that then breeds hypervigilance. And that then, if you can't let go of it, which I'm really struggling to do, you end up living in that fight or flight long after the threat is gone. Long after the threat is gone. And this hypervigilance, this PTSD, etc., I think it's not that it is in and of itself bad. It is a necessary and healthy survival response that helped me at the time that I'm now struggling to let go of.
Yeah, man. Well, in the same way that we are being predated upon by being like pushed to buy certain things and whatever, we're also being stripped of a lot of our natural healing abilities, our healing wisdoms. And some of that is very simple. It's actually not that hard. Like what we don't, like I have some people that I talk to, they have like allergies and asthma and stuff like that. And they're on Ventolins and all kinds of stuff. That can be the symptom of an underactive breathing system. And if you teach them how to nasal breathe through diaphragm, that problem slowly melts as the muscle system gets better. But for whatever reason, they're put on Ventolin. No one ever teaches them the free, safe, effective, non-invasive, very beneficial breathing system that would regulate anxiety, depression, moods, regulate all kinds of bodily functions. And so learning a simple thing, man, like sitting up against a wall with a really straight back and learning to breathe into your diaphragm and having no connection to anything, even for 15 deep breaths, it'll change your freaking life, Topher. I'm not kidding, man. It will literally change your perspective. Like 15 breaths. It doesn't take long. It's hard to do though, because you get distracted. We're so easily distracted because they're trying to take our attention. They're trying to take our energy.
Well, so I had to go and start seeing a counselor earlier this year for because reasons. And And I sat down with her, and I hadn't yet kind of accepted that I was carrying all of the COVID era stuff with me still. I thought that's in the past. I'm good. You know, I hadn't sort of just accepted that was still coming with me. But I wasn't happy with who I was becoming. And so I went to talk to someone about it, which, by the way, if you're watching this, don't be ashamed to go and talk to people. It can be a friend, it can be a pastor, it can be whomever. Don't be ashamed of going and talking to people. If I can do it,
reach out to me. I'm always here.
Yep. Exactly. So I went and I saw someone. I spoke to someone that I trust, and they recommended someone. And I went and saw them. And it turns out, pure coincidence, I didn't know this beforehand. They were actually familiar with my work, and they'd already seen my documentary. And so that kind of was wonderful because it allowed me to shortcut a lot of talking. There's lots of things I didn't have to explain because they already kind of knew. And I only found that out when I arrived. And so we talked about how that was sort of impacting me. And she was the one that said to me, well, she wasn't the first person, actually. I've had a number of people suggest it, but she was the first kind of official person who said to me, this has all the hallmarks of PTSD. That's what this looks like. That's what this sounds like, etc. And okay, fine. But what do I do about that? Like, okay, I've got PTSD. Now what? Right? That's sort of the very next thing that comes out of my mouth. And I was still hoping for a relatively sort of quick fix. And I've had to accept that that's not really the case. And she went through explaining the nervous system and the way that the nervous system can hang on to hypervigilance and hang on to trauma and keep you in a fight or flight kind of nervous system state. And I said, okay, that's great. I understand that. What do I do about it? First thing she said, breathing. She said, breathing.
Mate, I didn't even go to uni. Topher, I didn't even go to uni, mate. You could have come straight to me. I would have done it for free in a live podcast with you, because I've got systems beyond that, mate. You got to get in the flesh with me. I'll unlock your body for you. You don't realize how much of your emotional stress is stored in the body. Yeah, I can unlock it for you. You'll feel like the weight of the world has come off your shoulders, bro. Like, you'll feel so much better. And I would happily do it for you because I owe you, man. You've been a really good beacon of, logic. It's so nice to have someone in the public eye that actually makes sense. You're like, oh man, like there's only a few of you guys. So I appreciate it. And I would happily take some of that tension on to get you out of that so you can keep doing what you do. You just got to get in the same room as me.
Be careful what you wish for, because I'll be coming up to Sydney for the ARC Australia event in mid-October, I think it is. So yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. You said you might not. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. We'll figure something out.
I'll plan to do a flight through Melbourne on the way to wherever I'm going next.
I'm out of Melbourne. I got out of Victoria.
Perfect. Where are you now? Oh, you probably can't say.
I'm in Albury.
Aubrey,
yeah,
nice. Nice.
So I'm not in Victoria, but I can look down on it. I can see it from my house. You know that scene in The Lion King where
never go there, Scar.
Yeah, that's right. Everywhere the light touches will be yours one day. What about the shadowy space? That's Victoria. We don't go there.
Never go there. Right? Never go there, Simba. You must never go there.
Yeah. And so then you sort of, and I know the benefits of breath work, and I use it regularly. I use it ad hoc as I need it, and I also try to do some every single morning when I wake up, but I don't always remember. But the other reason I know that breathing works is because I'm an avid cigar smoker. And this might sound a little bit weird, but I smoke cigars for my mental health. They're wonderful for three reasons. Number one, ritual. We do not have enough rituals in Western culture, in my opinion. The last great Western ritual that people would do sort of every single day from Western culture was making and having a cup of tea. And we never had the tea ceremonies like what you will get in Eastern cultures, but we at least, there was ritual around making, brewing. You had the teapot, you put the tea in, blah, 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 serving it, lumps of sugar. There was ritual around that. And we lost that. Tea's now in a bag and we can make it quickly and drink it without thinking about what we're drinking while we're doing something else. And that was one of the last great rituals that we had in Western culture. And almost every other one is gone, if not every other one is gone. And it's things like cigar smoking that reintroduce ritual back into your life. And for me, it's about leaving the phone inside, going outside, taking out the cigars. Cigars have to be stored very carefully. They have to be humidified correctly. They have to be looked after. They can't be bumped and damaged. You can't let them get wet. So you take out the cigar, you select the cigar that you're going to smoke based on what your mood is, what the weather is, how bold of a flavor do you want, etc. You take it out, you can appreciate it, you can smell it, you can have a good look at it, feel the texture of it. Then you have to cut it very carefully. You have to decide what type of cut you're going to use. Is it going to be a V cut or a punch or a straight cut? Then you light it then you cold draw on it. So you draw through it without it lit and experience those flavors. Then you light it very carefully and very methodically without overheating the tip. And then the entire smoking journey, usually an hour to an hour and a half, is a form of meditation in the sense that you have to pace yourself really consciously. You have to be present with that cigar, observing how it's burning. Am I overheating it by smoking it too fast? Am I letting it go out by smoking it too slow? And you're actually having to be really present. So the ritual aspect is wonderful for my mental health. The deep breathing aspect, ironically, you don't actually inhale cigar smoke. You just draw it into your mouth. You bum puff, basically, from a cigarette smoker's point of view. And I've never had a cigarette. I'm not interested. But because you're doing that and experiencing the flavors, you then have to breathe at some point, right? So you've effectively been holding your breath for a little while. And I've taught myself when I'm smoking cigars, when I do take those breaths, I take them very deep. And I take really good, proper breaths that fill the lungs from the bottom. And so I'm getting some good breathing done in between, obviously, some bad breathing as well. And then the third reason why they're wonderful for my mental health is actually the nicotine itself. Nicotine is one of the cleanest and best psychoactive, non-harmful psychoactive agents that we have. And it's known, it's been proven time and again that it improves mood, it improves cognition and so forth. And so for me, that's become my meditation. And when I'm really struggling mentally, I will absolutely reach for a cigar in the humidor. If I'm really down, I'll try and carve out 60 to 90 minutes, reach for a cigar, and that's my ritual, and it's my breathing exercise, and it's my nicotine hit all in one. And I might smoke one in a month, or I might smoke 2 or 3 in a week, depending on how I'm going. But every single time, reliably, I come away better mentally than what I was before I went in. And I think largely it's the ritual and the breathing with a bit of nicotine to help.
Man, that's all. Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you look at the ingredients of what happened there, we can all create that in our own way. It doesn't have to be one size fits all. It can be like,
correct.
And what it is it's about putting away all the crazy macro environment that we can't control, bringing everything back into a simple, contained. For golfers, it's the glove going on the club and the golf course and the birds and the smell of grass. For me as a surfer, it's like paddling out in the water or doing Tai Chi, feeling my body move, or like if you're doing yoga, whatever it is, be 100% in that moment, feel your body, appreciate that moment, because that moment is going to go. You can't get it back ever again. So, and the more time we can take control of our moments and not let it get scattered away in the big stuff we can't control. I think that's where I get like anxiety, is if I let too much of my energy go out. I need to bring it back into what I can control. Jordan Peterson, actually, I don't know if people like him, but he has one really cool idea, and that is take care of your body, take care of your space before you worry about the world outside. Like make your bed and then the world will like be a little bit more manageable. And I used to think that was a really oversimplified thing, but it's an intention set. It's like, all right, if I can't even get my house in order, I'm not fixing anything outside the door. Like it's just it's humbling. It's like put you back in your place a bit. And I need that. I think I need that a lot.
So I'm looking forward to seeing him again in Sydney when he comes over for ARC, because I chatted with him when I was in London for the original ARC launch last year, and I'd never got to have this conversation with him, because we know that there are great figures in history that have had notoriously messy personal environments, from Einstein to Churchill and so many others. And so whilst I can accept that probably as a general rule, as a generalization across society, if you're writing a book for the middle of the bell curve, so to speak, that's probably really good advice. We know that there are exceptions to that. And I, for example, am an extremely messy person. I create an extremely chaotic personal environment. And what happens for me, so I've read 12 Rules for Life. I've read 12 More Rules. I'm currently reading Atomic Habits. I'm going through all that stuff, right? And I think one of the risks is for certain personality types, if I say my day has to start with making my bed, but making my bed is something that requires it requires conscious effort. right? It requires, right, I can get my day started, make breakfast, make coffee, check emails, make some phone calls, get some work done, have a shower, That's easy. That happens on autopilot for me. The minute I say I have to start by making my bed, I've created some really significant resistance for myself. And what happens if I'm not having a good day, then by just getting into that routine that I've already got, that I don't have to change, I can get my day started. And, as I say, champions are made on their bad days. It's still being able to accomplish something on a bad day that then leads you to actually be able to accomplish great things over a period of time. If I was to have the obstacle of the obligation, I have to start my day in this way with this thing that I just for whatever reason, internally, I have enormous resistance to doing, then I know I'm going to end up getting nothing done that day. I'm going to start my day with a sense of failure. And that's going to lead to my bad day being even worse. And so I would love to pick his brain, because I'm sure he's got wonderful responses to all of that, right? I have enormous respect for the man, but I'd love to have that conversation with him and to get his thoughts and his responses to, high achieving figures throughout history who were notoriously messy.
I think it's more just an analogy that, like, if you get stuck and you're feeling frustrated, sometimes just the simple task of going to make your bed will reboot your system. And I find it works anyway. Like if I'm feeling like writer's block and I can't write anymore, I just go start putting my desk in order, and all of a sudden the wheels start spinning again. But yeah, man, in life, there's many causes to everything. Nothing is one simple cause. So there's never one simple solution. There's always many causes to many effects. And it's like getting a bit greedy for the quick fix can be one of the ways I trap myself. Trying to eat neutral grain instead of exercising as a kid kind of thing, It's like trying to shake my fist at the elephant rather than addressing, all right, what can I change? What can I do to fix my situation, rather than wasting my energy in this? Because it's so frustrating. It was, man. I read some of RFK's book and was just furious. I was just so frustrated. So I was just all right, this is not helping. It's just making me more angry. But it's good to know. But I can spend my energy on information that makes me angry, or I can spend my energy on information that makes me love life, healthy and happy, and then I'll go back into that and go into that and go back and forth. But if you just stay trapped, that's not good for you, bro. You can't do that, and it's hard to break out because it's intense information.
Yeah, and I address exactly that issue quite regularly, actually, and I was one of the first people, sort of in the freedom movement, so to speak, to start really pushing back on people that were essentially blackpilling themselves and talking themselves into despair because they just found every single reason why it's hopeless. And, I always love it. Every election, we're coming into council elections in New South Wales this weekend and in Victoria in a few weeks' time. And, every time an election rolls around, there's all these people saying, oh, don't bother. They're selected, not elected. It's all rigged. They are going to get the candidate that they want. And then as often as not, the result isn't the one that those people were predicting. And I'm like, see? And yet the next time an election rolls around, they're back to saying the exact same thing again. You're like, dude, were you not paying attention last time? Right? And so people talk themselves into despair and focus all their energies on things that they can't influence, they can't control, and really don't actually affect their life in any meaningful way anyway. But there is also that reality of, someone like myself, I'm waking up every day, and some days are better than others, but I'm waking up every day, and there is the risk of my headspace getting the better of me before I've even necessarily gotten out of bed. And it's not because of conspiracy theories and Illuminati and da-da-da-da-da. It is because of the hypervigilance, the trauma response, the survival response that got me through COVID is no longer my friend, but I'm having trouble turning it off. And it's more at that level that I find myself struggling. It's not about the conspiracy theories and the hopelessness of, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. I'm actually super optimistic about the future. I think fast forward 20 years, the world is going to be a much better place than what it is right now. I think maybe we have to go through a tough 5 to 10, maybe 15 years between now and then, but I'm super optimistic about the future. I'm just struggling to operate and to function at a human level.
Yeah, what you'll find is, man, cortisol, when you go through that kind of situation, you're just flooded with cortisol for probably a year straight, and that stores in your muscles. So you actually need someone to unlock your abdomen. You'll feel like, I can't even stress, I'll happily talk you through anyone who can do it for you. I'll tell them how to do it over Zoom if I have to, but you don't understand how much better you'll feel. Like it's stored in your body, and you'll talk about it forever. But until we clear your body, it's just there, bro. And in Taoism, like they talk about health from an angle that's a little bit deeper. Like in Western medicine, they say health is the absence of sickness, and it's kind of a setup to fail, because it's like if you're sick and then you get not sick, you're there. But health is up here. Like health is, and like in Taoism, they say health is when you're in harmony, mind, heart, and body. All three have to be in harmony for you to be in health. Otherwise, your mental health goes out. Doesn't matter how you could have a six-pack, be fit, run marathons. If you're thinking terribly, you're in a bad headspace. And if your relationship with yourself and others are bad, doesn't matter. You're not in a good spot. So we need to learn how to guide our energy. You talk about energy into harmony. And it's like uniting it into one direction. And it's okay to like go and focus on the big things, because we need to be aware of them. But whenever we can, come back and fix your body. You got to be you got to be aware of the outside and take care of the inside. It's both. You never get to just switch off and do one. It's like both extremes. But it's finding a joyful way to interact with that information, like laugh at it, like be like, oh, what Muppets, man. Can you believe they're doing that? Like, if you can, it takes a lot of the sting out of it, and make it like it's over there. Like it seems like something bad's about to happen, but it didn't. Like I got through all that, and you know, I'm going to get through the rest. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get through it. It's going to be fine. I'm going to do it.
So it's interesting. I've just made a mental connection that is extremely obvious, and my regular followers will recognize the first half of this story anyway. But it's so obvious that I hadn't actually seen it's how applicable it is potentially to my situation right now. So those that have read my book and those that have followed me for a while, you'll be familiar with. I really struggled mentally during COVID, and it was a progressive thing. I spoke at the very first anti-lockdown rally in April 2020. And I was, I copped an avalanche of abuse. That's fine. I was used to that by then. I'd already sort of compartmentalized that aspect of my life. But then after the abuse subsided, I got lots of support, which was wonderful and much appreciated. And then after the support subsided, I had this wave of people reaching out to me to tell me their story. And it was people saying, I'm at the end of my rope. My business is about to go bankrupt. We're going to lose the house. People saying, I'm watching my teenagers' mental health deteriorate. They're locked in the house 23 hours a day and they're not coping, or various, stories at various levels of desperation and urgency. And it was just all of a sudden, they just started appearing on my Facebook page and in my emails, because the missing piece of context here is I live streamed my talk from that very first protest. And by the time I got home from the protest, it had over 100,000 views on it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then the abuse came, and that's fine. And then the support came, and that's wonderful. And then the need came, so to speak. And I felt an obligation to try and reply to all of these people, because if you stop and think, why are they reaching out to a glorified YouTuber? Well, it's because their therapist has cut them off. Their family won't listen to them. Their politicians are just telling them to do as they're told. Their churches have shut their doors. They've been given no one else. Right. That's the only reason they're coming to me, to tell me their story. And at first I was like, I can't help these people. And then I realized, well, they're not coming to me for help. They know I can't help them. They're not idiots. They're not coming to me for help. They're coming to me to try and be heard. That's literally, they just want to be heard and acknowledged. And so I made it my mission to try and read and reply and write a custom reply to each one of these people that included something that let them know that I'd actually read their email. And some of these emails were enormous, all right? And I wanted to reply and say, I'm so sorry to hear about X, and and just make sure that they understood I'd actually read the entire thing, and I would try and reply as quickly as possible, certainly that night if I could, because I know obviously the long dark of night is when people do things that can't be undone most of the time. And so I was dealing with that, and my own business was going under. Lost a lot of money for myself and my investors, and that was challenging. We had a young son, and my wife was pregnant, expecting our second child. And I was then also involved in ongoing protests, and we had the police. Sorry, someone's just written a comment there. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. And I had the police knocking on my door, trying to intimidate me out of going to protests and saying what I was saying online. as time passed, so fast forward a year of that, right? I was drinking heavily, just trying to cope with the nerves of even just checking my emails had become a really, my hand would shake. I would have to psych myself up just to refresh my inbox because of the horrors that I knew would lie within and the weight of that. And then getting word through the grapevine, or in one particularly painful case, a family actually messaged me to say, hey, we're reaching out to say thank you because unfortunately our loved one went through with taking their life. And we've been cleaning up their affairs and we've found their exchange with you. And we just wanted to let you know that they reached out to lots of people and you were the only one that wrote back.
Wow.
And so carrying that weight, that sense of responsibility, the sleepless nights, there were a few, it wasn't common, but there were a few occasions when I was still up reading and replying to emails when the sun came up in the morning.
Wow.
I moved my computer into the garage at home because I didn't want to be around my family and have them see me in that state. And I would drink to try and calm the nerves and get myself to be able to face the inbox each time. And then outside of that, I'm losing my business. I've got a son who's hyperactive and needs to be looked after and is cooped up at home 23 hours a day. I've got a wife who's pregnant and increasingly needing more and more help. And then ultimately she had the baby during COVID and we had to deal with a newborn and all the madness. I mean, trying to get just basic medical obstetric care for a pregnant woman during lockdowns was madness. And then on weekends, I'm playing Dodgem cops and I've got cops showing up to my door to try and intimidate me and everything else. And so with all of that, I ended up in a really, really, really bad headspace.
Mate, look, you need to reword that because you didn't end up in a bad headspace. The fact you got through all that, mate, don't see it as a bad headspace. You're a soldier, bro. Like, man, I don't know if I could have handled that. I would, you need to honor that, bro. You're not in a bad headspace. You survived a freaking trauma. You're in the trenches taking grenades and you came out the other side. You're in a great headspace for surviving that, and now you got to kind of soothe yourself, bro. You're healing. Yeah. Words have power. You're healing. You're not in a bad headspace. Stop saying that. You're healing, bro. You're recovering, and you're going to feel way more joyful as soon as you're fully healed. But it's not now. It's a process.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. So
100%.
Where I got to my low point was when I knew sooner or later I was going to get arrested, and it was just a matter of time. And so I had hypervigilance even when I was at home waiting for the cops to show up because we'd seen videos of them, using battering rams and smashing through people's doors and violent arrests. Some people had been hospitalized because of the manner in which they were arrested. And I've got a young kid at home and a pregnant and a newborn and a wife recovering from a C-section. And, and I'm waiting for that arrest to happen at any given moment and the hypervigilance and just living on edge all of the time. And I felt like I was going to come apart at the seams. And I finally went to my wife and said, hey, I'm not coping. And she's like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But she knew me well enough to know that she couldn't be the one to tell me that I wasn't coping. She had to wait for me to, which I did. And so I went to her and I said, look, I'm not coping. I'm not okay. And, and I don't know what to do. Like, I can't stop replying to these people and I'm not going to stop protesting and standing up for human rights. And even if I did, it's probably too late. They're going to arrest me at some point for stuff that I've already done. Like, I've made my bed. How do I deal with this? How do I cope with this? And she just looked at me and she said, well, you haven't done what you promised. I said, what's that? What do you mean? And she reminded me the day I proposed to her, I said to her, one thing you need to know before you say yes is that I fully expect that I'm going to get arrested someday for my work because of what I do, because of my political commentary. And it wasn't bravado. That wasn't ego. That was just me recognizing the way the world was going and knowing myself and that I'm not someone who can just shut up and look the other way and pretend I didn't see, right? And I didn't expect it to happen in 2020. I thought maybe like the 2030s sometime, maybe the world would go to hell in a handbasket, right? But it happened sooner than I thought. And she said, do you remember what I said to you? And I said, maybe remind me. She said, I just said to you, just make sure I know who to call when you get arrested. And she said, you haven't done that. You haven't told me who I need to call when that arrest comes, because it's coming. We both know it's coming. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I sat down and I wrote a 4-page actions on document. Okay. In the event that I'm arrested, and this is my military background coming back out again, in the event of my arrest, if you know that I've been arrested and you know where I am, do these things. If you don't know and I've just disappeared and there's no communication, do these things. If I've been hospitalized, do these things. If in the very unlikely event that I've been killed, do these things. And then a branching tree of if then, you know, if this and then that, then do this. I gave her a full list of phone numbers, names and phone numbers, and the reason why she needs to call that person, the conversation, the 1-paragraph version of the conversation that she needs to have with that person, the reason why she's talking to them. Lawyers, police officers, politicians, fellow activists, it's, you know, people that can support her and rally around the family, because remembering we had a relative newborn at the time, so she was going to need a huge amount of support if I was suddenly taken out of the equation. It was a 4-page document, and I emailed that to her, and she printed off a couple of copies and hid them in different parts of the house. And I slept after that. I got back to being able to sleep. And it wasn't that my circumstances had changed. It was just that there was a plan. My relationship to my circumstances had improved. And so the reason why I made the comment I did earlier about actually this is really obvious, and I don't even know why I haven't done it. And it's funny because I talked about it in the second week of the masterclass, so it's not like I can claim that I'd forgotten. Is to actually sit down again and go through a similar process now. I think not for being arrested. That's not the event that I'd be documenting and preparing for now. But to sit down and go, okay, so what are the things that are bothering me now? What are the things that are weighing on me now? And to just work my way through those and write that down. This is what's bothering me. This is why. This is what I'm afraid might happen. And this is what ought to be done by me or by my wife or what have you in the event that this actually comes true. And that'll probably be a very good exercise for me. Based on past history, I'd say that's probably a good idea.
I think it's always a good idea to observe and pay attention to what is happening, because we often just live. Man, we just keep living. It just goes. And next thing you know, you asked me before how old I am. I just turned 40, and I was just like, "What happened?" I'm 40. It's crazy. Yeah. So if you don't stop and observe, you don't realize you're just following the momentum that's already running, and that's being stuck in a pattern, and that makes you easy for a predator to manipulate you or take from you. So it's important to do that. And man, it's also important for you to honor how much strength you actually have. You have to stop and tell yourself, man, I'm so powerful. A lot of people wouldn't be able to handle what you handle. And if you're not telling yourself you're powerful, let me tell you you're powerful, and then go and tell yourself you're powerful later, because your words influence your heart directly, bro. Our own words are one of the closest things to us. Intention and words influence water. Have you seen the hidden messages in water by a Japanese scientist I'm forgetting the name of, but he proved that by having intention towards water, you change the water molecule. And if our body's 90% water, 70% water, our words are influencing it. So saying things like, I'm in a bad way, is okay, you can say that at the beginning, but you got to start changing it to improve. So you start going, I'm going to find a better way, I'm going to do something better. Words are really important. And observing where we're spending our energy, don't let your energy get spent in places that are impractical. Bring them back to where you can be effective, because I think what your wife did then was she brought you out of worrying about all this stuff and brought you into observe your actual feeling, break it open, deal with it. And what yours was the things that you value the most, your family, you didn't have a plan for them, and you didn't know how to protect them if this thing happened. So as soon as your subconscious had all its ducks in a row, you're like, oh, boom, I can rest. Often, every feeling in our system, there's a cause and effect to it. If we can break it open, it makes it manageable. And that's one thing I've learned through COVID was you have to break your feelings up and go, all right, that's worrying about the elephant that I can't control. Let's deal with ant problems. Deal with the stuff the ant can work on, and then it becomes a fightable fight. The thing I found really annoying was I'm an active guy. I'm very excitable. I like to right injustices. And when that whole thing kicked off, I wanted to go to war to protect my family and my people. And I had to sit and watch Mike Yeadon's Freedom Lockdown documentary. Like, I wanted to go out and punch someone in the head, and I got to sit and read a document about why Anthony Fauci's doing what he's doing. Like, it's just, it's an information war. So I got really frustrated. So I found it better to focus on uplifting myself and uplifting everyone around us. And when we're happy and joyful, we'll take on anything, bro. We'll handle it all. Have you seen those videos where, like, it'll be like someone says, can we not remix videos with stupid nonsense? And then someone will remix it, and it just everyone adds to it. Man, if the human race put that energy into solving problems, we would have an amazing society. But the powers that be don't use it for that. They make us addicted to things that they can draw from, like, you know, scary news articles that make us watch the news for hours rather than something meaningful. It's all about getting and taking. And I think when your heart learns to shift and not follow that, I'm not worried about getting, I'm worried about sharing. And that's what you do, bro. You share. You share your courage, you share your experience, you share your whole freaking life, man. Like, thank you. That's true generosity. You're not trying to get anything back. You're just trying to help people. That's different to when people are trying to take. And a lot of those...
Don't get me wrong. If someone wants to buy my book, I'm not going to stop them. But, you know,
that amazing book, Good People Break Bad Laws, man, it sounds like an amazing book. I mean, and people will benefit so much from reading that because it's such a cool title. Because if you follow bad laws, you're contributing to negativity in a way, and it takes a lot of strength to know which ones to break.
You're actually enabling in a really insidious way. So one of the realizations that I had, and I talk about this in the book, and I talked about it in keynote speeches that I've done at conferences and things like that, is if you look at history can be understood. And obviously there's lots of different lenses you can look at history through. But one of the lenses that is valid, it's not complete, but it is valid, is to see it as a competition between people who want to rule others and people who want to live in freedom. And there's this constant tension throughout history of different powers rising and falling, and different new groups of people trying to take control of everybody, and then everybody going, no, we don't want to be controlled, we don't want to be ruled. And so political history is actually a history of people trying to invent a system of government that doesn't become a tyranny, that doesn't end up taking too much power. And we've tried all kinds of things. We've tried things like monarchies, which obviously are, in their absolute form, they are just a dictatorship. We've tried things like constitutional monarchies, where we try and put some limitations on the power of the king. We've tried things like republics and democratic systems. We've tried bills of rights, separation of powers, the concept of human rights. We've tried all these different political innovations to try and keep the power of government in check. And the crushing lesson of history is that every single one of those ideas has failed. Right? That's the crushing lesson of history. Every single one of those ideas has failed at some point in time somewhere. Right? Not that every single one of them has failed right now, but at some point in time, democracies have fallen into tyranny, into genocide. We've seen bills of rights get completely overridden and disregarded. We've seen, every single experiment that we've tried has failed at some point in time. So none of them can be relied on to keep the power of government in check. There is, in the end, only one thing that has ever actually done that effectively, and that is the people reaching the limit of their obedience. It's actually up to us. And these other checks and balances can be a good thing, but if they're not backed up by a populace that is actually willing to say, no, government, I'm not going to do that, or damn you, government, I'm going to do that anyway, despite you telling me not to. If there isn't that will in place, then ultimately every other safeguard will, over a long enough period of time, fail. And so civil disobedience and the limit of our obedience and what is just and valid and what is not is a really important conversation that we need to be having. And I just don't think enough of us are. Which is what I'm hoping to catalyze that conversation through the book, Good People Break Bad Laws, and its sequel coming out later this year, Good Christians Break Bad Laws, is to say, hey guys, even if you don't think we're there yet, even if you think I'm ahead of time, you've got to accept that sooner or later we're going to get there. And we need to have this conversation now so that when we get to the point that you're sitting there going, hey, we need to stand up and do something, that people actually have a grounding and understanding philosophically, legally, and morally, what it even is to limit your power, to limit your obedience. Sorry, not to limit your power, to limit your obedience to government, and in the process to limit the government's power.
100%. I liked you shared something today about what's going on in Brazil. So I've got a friend in Brazil, and he sends me videos of the protests, and then I see Luna's parade with no one at it, and you're just like, come on, man. And for those that don't know that are watching, they're trying to ban Twitter or X. The platform formerly known as Twitter. They're trying to ban that in Brazil, which is just like, I don't even understand. Like, you're allowed to have access to information, but we need to oversee it first because you need to be protected from the dangerous information that you're not ready to hear. And it's like, I mean, the arrogance in that statement, like, you know, like, and that's what I find frustrating is the lack of logic. Like, there's no logic in that at all. Someone should be there going, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, no. And then did you see, I forget her name, Reignite Democracy? She had a court case.
Monica. Yeah.
Monica. Yeah. That's what Monica. 2 out of 3 cases kicked out. And then, but she's got to maybe pay legal costs. And it's just like, what are we doing?
So I talked with her about this before the case, quite a while ago now. This is a well-known legal trick. And this is where tactics is really important and discretion and wisdom are really important. And I want to be really clear. I don't think she's done the wrong thing at all. I'm not suggesting she has, but I'm going to talk you through the detail of this because it matters. So she took the Victoria Police to court because they arrested her 3 times in one day. Now, she was a registered journalist and she was working as a journalist on those days. And so she wanted to try and set a precedent around journalism and the fact that just because a journalist is also an activist does not invalidate their journalistic protections. And there's good legal precedent around the world for that. That's a relatively well-established thing at law. It's just not established in Australia anywhere yet. And so she wanted to try and establish that principle.
So that precedent's now?
Well, it's interesting. So the judge agreed with her that 2 out of the 3 arrests were unlawful. Now, I haven't actually read the judgment yet. It only came out today. But my guess is that she would have ruled the first arrest was not unlawful because they didn't have enough information yet. So they arrested her. They got information. They then released her. And they should not have arrested her a second and then a third time on the same day because they knew better now, right? So that's my guess, is that the judge has said the first arrest was not unlawful. That's fine. But the second time you arrested her on the same day and then the third time you arrested her on the same day, those were unlawful. Now, she's then awarded $4,000 in costs to Monica. Now, that amounts to a loss in terms of financially, okay? Because she represented herself, and props to her. Like, that takes some serious guts to do that. I wouldn't have
that situation.
Sorry?
She did the Matt Damon. She just Goodwill Hunting that thing, like.
Yeah, she absolutely did, and she did an incredible job of it too. She did phenomenally well. But if I
was a cop and someone without a lawyer got out of 66% of the charges I'd put against them, I would step down. That's intellectual cowardice, to stand in a job and be that terrible at it, that someone who has no training and is doing it in their spare time to protect themselves for standing around at a protest. And I push back. I don't even think the first one would have made any sense at all when you go into deeper, but keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
that's
here's the detail where, people say, you should just go in and, so people have told me I should sue the government for different things and I should have this lawsuit and that lawsuit. And I'm like, you need to understand that the game is not about who wins. It's about who pays. And there's a military doctrine, a military philosophy around the cost of ammunition or the cost of ordnance. Okay. So if you use $1 million missile to blow up a $10,000 piece of enemy equipment, you just shot yourself to the tune of $990,000.
It's like losing a queen to take a pawn.
Correct. You have to consider the cost of ordnance. In Roman history, we read about the Pyrrhic victory, right? The Roman legion won a battle, but they suffered such terrible losses that it was a worthless victory in the end. Okay. We have to apply that logic and an understanding that there are some battles that even if you win them won't be worth the cost. Now, I'm not suggesting that this was the case with Monica's court case. I'm not suggesting that she should not have launched that court case. I agree with her choice to do so. But the police will focus on trying to get you to lose the court case. And if they can't get you to lose the court case, they will try and make it cost you so much that the victory wasn't worth the price. That's their second line of defense. And here's how they've done it in this particular case. They have made an offer pre-trial of a settlement, and they would have bumped that amount of money up. And the reason why they would have done that is because if the amount that she is awarded in court is less than the amount that she was offered pre-trial, then the defendant, in this case Victoria Police, can go to the court and say, Your Honour, we offered her more than that pre-trial. She's wasted court time. She's wasted our time. We've had to pay for barristers for 2 weeks and lawyers for 2 weeks. We've had to call witnesses. This has come at a terrible cost, and it was completely unnecessary because, Your Honour, we, in good faith, being the wonderful, responsible people that we are, offered her a bigger settlement than what you awarded her when she won the court case. Therefore, she has wasted court time, and you should award costs against her. Now, they will do two things to make this strategy as devastating as possible. Number one, they will run up their costs as high as possible. They will use expensive barristers for as many days as possible. They will have as many lawyers. They will do everything they can do to make that costs award as expensive as possible. Then what they do is when they make the offer pre-trial to someone like Monica, who they know is deeply serious about what she's doing and is ideologically motivated, she's not there for the money. It doesn't matter what number they put in front of her. For all I care, they could have put $10 million in front of her. She still would have said no. I know Monica. She's a friend of mine. There's no way she was going to fold for any amount of money. And they know that. And by the way, I don't know that it was $10 million. I don't think it was anything like that. But let's say it was something like $50,000.
3 Bitcoin.
They can be confident that she's going to say no to that. And they can also be confident that whatever the judge awards her is going to be less than that, which means that they can be confident that they can trigger an application to have costs awarded against her. And those costs are going to be as big as they can possibly make them. So I haven't spoken to Monica since the decision. I look forward to doing that hopefully later this week or next week. But what they will be trying to do is make this win so expensive that it costs the freedom movement more than what the precedent is worth. Right?
It's just...
Now, I have my thoughts on the correct response to that, but I'm not going to say them publicly here. I don't think the police watch my stuff anymore. I know they did during COVID. I think they've lost interest now, but I'm not going to publicly put out there what I believe our counter stroke ought to be. I will be discussing that in private with Monica when I get the chance, once she's had a bit of time to digest whatever happens, because I think the court hearings, I think the costs hearing is tomorrow, I think. So she's just come off the back of a huge court case. She was hoping to be partying tonight, but she can't because she's getting ready now for a costs hearing tomorrow. If that goes against her, I have some thoughts on the correct strategy. I'm not going to telegraph what they are. I'll discuss those in private with her. And then whatever she decides to do, I will back, because she's a tremendously courageous woman and she deserves our unreserved support. But I do have a view on what the correct response ought to be. Yeah.
It's just amazing that we're seeing such an example of integrity from someone like her, and the people that are supposed to be protecting the community, the police force. It got changed from police service to police force a while back, but they're meant to be protecting and serving, and they're being paid to look after us in a way. And I feel like they're wasting that money, and they're doing a lot of opposite. I don't feel that that's a good use of those funds in a way. I feel like we could better apply that money.
So can I bore you to tears with my theory on the most parasitic word in the English language?
I mean, I'm hard to bore to tears, but bring it on.
The word system is a parasite.
System.
It is the most parasitic, most destructive, most toxic word in the English language.
Wow.
Because, and I use the word parasite deliberately, because whatever other word you attach the word system to, it will kill. It will kill that word like a parasite that sucks its host to death. So think about the justice system. The moment it becomes a system, what comes first, justice or system? Well, let's test this a little bit. If you're a little old lady with no money who goes into the system to try and get justice, it does not matter how just your cause is, because you don't know the system and you don't have money to pay somebody who does. You're not going to get justice because the person you're trying to sue probably does know the system and has the money to pay someone who can play the system. So what wins? Is it justice or is it system? And if you're a bank or an employer or the government and you want to get an unjust outcome, you could walk into the justice system with expensive lawyers who know all of the tricks and create an injustice through the justice system. By doing what? By following the system. Okay? So system wins. As soon as system is attached to any other word, system trumps the other word. Education system. What comes first, education or system? There are some real freaking idiots with degrees because they knew how the system worked. Health system. What comes first, health outcomes or compliance with the system?
The sickness
industry.
industry.
We know the sickness industry. We know this because we know that everyone from nurses to police officers, etc., will tell each other and tell themselves, listen, just follow the procedure and you'll be right. You can't get in trouble as long as you follow the procedure. What are they saying? Follow the system. Set aside your conscience, set aside your judgment, set aside the fact that you can see and know better in this case. Just do what the system requires you to do and your ass will be covered, even if injustice is done, even if sickness is the result, etc. Okay? So system wins every time you attach to anything else. And this is why, by the way, there is a principle, there is a maxim, it's something approximating a law of nature, in my opinion, that governments will always, in the end, accomplish the opposite of what they set out to accomplish. Whatever it is, the war on drugs, the war on homelessness, the war on poverty, fixing the mental health system, international wars to stop terrorism, every single one of these things has backfired on us. Why?
Except when they're putting their own prices, putting their own wages up. They seem to do that really well.
So how can it be so consistent that government projects backfire? Well, because when the government says, I'm going to do something, what do? They put in place a system. And what does the system do? Well, it takes precedence over whatever it is that the system was supposed to be accomplishing. And as soon as that happens, it's a parasite. It kills its host. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, because I keep forgetting that I'm the host of this podcast, so I'm going to push back because I love the word system. And I think parasites are controlling the system, and I'll agree with you there. But the word system to me means how something works. So we have a digestive system that digests our food, and it works if you eat the right food. But if you put the wrong thing in the system, it don't work so good. Same with our respiratory system. If you don't breathe properly, it don't work good. Our circulatory system is our blood. Our immune system is great. It's awesome. But if you don't take care of it, it doesn't work. And our justice system, so I've got an example. I was caught in the middle of an intersection. I was stuck behind the person in front. They turned the indicator on right late and left me stuck there. And I was there, light went red, and I was still there. And I couldn't get out of there, so I had to shimmy through. They took the photo of me, and I pushed back, and I sought leniency and said, no, I was trapped there. I had to do something to get out of the intersection. And they said, no, you got to pay it. And I would have lost my license. So I was like, this is worth fighting. So I took it to court. And I walked in and said, not guilty. And they were like, they bully you. They're like, you should plead guilty, an excuse. And I was like, I don't agree. I'm not guilty. I was stuck there. The infringement is for not turning right or not stopping at a red arrow. And in the photo of evidence, I'm stopped. My taillights are on. I'm stuck in the intersection. But they made it so that I went back to court, and I went back and they withdrew the day before court. If I had paid for a lawyer, I would have paid $5,000 to have someone not even need to turn up for me. So I goodwill hunting myself, save myself $5,000.
Let me add a clarification on the system issue. Something that has systems is great. If I'm getting surgery, I want that surgery, that place to have really good systems around sterilizing medical equipment and making sure the right medications and anesthetics and so forth are being used. Something having systems is great. Something being a system is terrible. And the distinction is this. When something has systems, the objective that they're trying to accomplish is not the system itself. There is a higher goal that those systems serve. When something is a system, compliance with the system is the higher goal. And if you say justice system, you're doing injustice, they'll turn around and say, well, but the system was followed correctly. The following of the system is the goal. They've lost sight of justice completely. So having systems is different to being a system. And what government does is it creates things that are systems, not things that have systems.
Yeah. And I think it's important that for a system to be functioning properly, it has to match the goal. And if the goal is to create justice, that's the goal. not the system. Like you said, it's not maintaining the system. It's achieving the goal. The system is for that. And that's what makes a good system. So if I'm eating food and my digestive system doesn't like it, I shouldn't eat that food. If I'm breathing in a way and it's making me sick, I shouldn't breathe like that. That's not in harmony with the function.
Your digestive system's purpose is to extract nutrients out of the food and deliver them to your body. That's the purpose for which it exists. And the digestive system can't say, well, here are the rules by which we operate, and now we're going to fail to extract nutrition and fail to deliver them to your body. But we're following the system, so you've got no beef with us. You can't look at us. Don't complain. Meanwhile, your body is starved of nutrition. Well, at that point, you've got something that is the purpose of the system is to ensure its own survival. The purpose of something that is a system is to ensure its own survival first and foremost, as opposed to serve an external goal and to be changed in the event that it becomes detrimental to the accomplishing of that goal. So that's the difference between having a system. You will, if the goal is not being achieved, a system that you have will be changed to achieve that goal.
Oh no, that's a good point. So I think what we come to is society is one big system. Like it's a way for us to all live in a small confined space and share resources and have a convenient life. But the problem is when people within that system don't follow a logic that is based on some kind of good intention. Like, like monkeys, they can only have like a population of 150 before like 149, and then they get to 150 and big trauma, they break up 2 different groups, 75 each. It's like at some level, someone corrupt will try to get to the top and take control of that system. And it's like intellectual cowardice is what allows it to get there. Like, did you see the what was the giggle versus tickle thing? Like, I'm just like, man, how can that be allowed to be on the, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And like, I can't think of
a name. When that was happening, I can't think of a name. But I mean, how hilarious that you've got giggle versus tickle as a legal name. It's almost
hilarious. You can't write that.
Almost as good as Al Gore. He had a Canadian, I think it was Canadian, carbon credits trading company, and made him an absolute fortune. It's where he made most of his money, and that's why he was promoting obviously carbon trading, etc. So his name's Al Gore. His business partner in that business, his name was whatever it was, Blood, and the company's name, I'm not making this up, was Blood and Gore.
Brilliant. I love it. There are no accidents.
Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. But yeah, like it's the intellectual cowardice that frustrates me, because like we should be able to see open debate about these things, and then I think people would follow if they watched 2 people of equal intellectual like strength battle something out. We'd all learn from it. Society as a whole would raise, but they don't do that. We get these little 30-second yelling segments on news channels, and it's small segments of information, and it's just designed to infuriate. It's designed to distract you, to keep you watching, and to make you scared. And if you fall into that, you're falling into the pattern of the trap. You've actually got to be like, man, that is such a circus. I am not falling into that. I've got one friend, and throughout the whole thing, he was just like, every time I talked to him about it, he was like so joyful. I was like, you don't watch much of it. He goes, man, I get a bit of secondhand smoke off you, but that's about it. I can't be bothered. And I was just like, I respect that discipline. Like, I really do. Like, I wish I had it. I was fully like argumentative, and I should have been more chilled, because you just burn your own energy. Like, you got to learn to conserve your power in a fight. You don't want to be punching everything, trying to hit everyone. Save it for when you can be effective. Wait until that moment. That's wisdom, Save your power. Because you need it. Take on a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's getting on towards 10 o'clock, so you might need to wrap up your podcast side of things, and then everyone stick around, because I've got a few comments right at the very end. But Sean, take it away.
Everyone, thanks for listening. It's been amazing. Look, you might feel sometimes that there's a lot going on. I used to feel that life was pretty scary and complicated. Things got a lot more simple when I started managing my own intention. When I just managed my intention to the world, things didn't go as crazy. And if you're ever feeling alone, reach out. Me and Topher are always here. People like us, We're a community. We're a vibe. We don't need a club. We don't need a badge. We are kind-hearted people. We know when we look each other in the eye and the words we choose, that's our language. I had one video go viral to like 10 million people viewed it, and it was all just talking about kindness and harmony and how to share happiness. And one of the Kardashians liked it. That's how popular it was. Like, people feel that frequency. It's one of the most powerful forces. And if you have that kindness heart, doors will open. People will smile at you. You'll make friends. You'll get advice. You'll get resources. But if you're trying to take, if you're trying to get, those doors will close. People will feel that. They're more sensitive than you know, and they'll resist you. That's why people feel Topher, because he's genuine. We are not stupid. We can feel he is 100% the person sitting there. And when someone sits in front of us and is fake, we might not know it up here, but in here we feel it. We take space. We don't trust them. We don't listen. And so we need more kind-hearted, strong, joyful, logical people. And I thank you, Topher, for being one of those people, man. And thanks very much for being part of the kindness community. And I'm trying to build an app where we can actually sidestep the weirdness in healing protocols. I want you to be able to come to an app and go, I have this problem, and the best protocols there, bang, ready to go. I've healed a few things in my time, and a lot of people have a lot of cool healing wisdom. We can share it, collaborate in a good intention. Life will get great because we are more powerful than they want us to know. And that's making us think we aren't powerful. We are so powerful. We choose so many times in each moment. Don't waste those choices, and don't waste your time. And remember, stay relaxed. Save your power. Thanks, Topher. I'll get out of your hair, mate. Have a good day.
Thanks, Sean, mate. Stick around for a second. So thank you, Sean, for joining us. To everyone watching, thank you. There's still well over 500 people watching live right now across all the different platforms where we're streaming. I'm going to give all my stuff one more plug to keep the wife happy. But I've got a bunch of cool merch. I've got t-shirts and hoodies that have a bunch of funny slogans. I've got Good People Break Bad Laws, which is the title of my book. It's also a slogan on the shirts. I've got my personal favorite one right now is one that says Too Much 1984, and it has a picture of a surveillance camera. Not Enough 1776, which of course was Boston Tea Party, American Revolution stuff. And I love that shirt. Looks like Sean's camera may have frozen. So I'm just going to take Sean off the screen. Sean, if you can still hear me, thank you so much, mate. I wish you all the best. We'll chat later. So I got my t-shirts, my hoodies, I got my books. Good People Break Bad Laws is the book that's already available, and Good Christians Break Bad Laws is going to be available by the end of this year. It's available for pre-order right now. You can jump online, pre-order it. If you pre-order, you will get a signed copy. I will hand sign every single copy that goes out as a result of the pre-order. So do jump online and do that. I'll type in the website here. www.goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. You can go there. So I got people saying, Dawn is saying those tees are good cotton. They are. Stuart's saying great quality merch. That it is great quality merch. The guys, my team, do a wonderful job. I've got a team in Horsham that print the shirts for me and dispatch them and send them out, etc. The book is available. There is also my masterclass. So like I said to you earlier on, I'm not sitting here as a guru, and neither was Sean, by the way. I love his tag, his handle, not a guru. I think that's fantastic. I'm not sitting here saying I've got it all figured out. What I'm sitting here is saying I'm someone who's living a human experience the same as you guys are, and I'm having to muddle my way through. And I have the privilege, because I've got a bit of profile, of being able to talk to lots of amazing people. Goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. Someone's saying the link is bad. Duncan's saying the link is bad. Goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. I can't see any issue. I did bread bad laws. Oops. Sorry. Good people break bad laws. Not bread. I'm not. It's not about gluten. All right. Should be a thanks for spotting that, guys. I appreciate that. That's hilarious. So my masterclass, we've done 5 out of the 6 weeks already. It's too late to join for the live masterclass. That horse is bolted. There were 50 people only. We ended up with 49 in there. And we've had a great time for the last 5 weeks, and we've got 1 more week to go. But you can jump in and you'll get immediate access to the replay of all 5 episodes or all 5 sessions that we've done so far. And of course, you'll get the 6th session after we finish the course this coming week. So jump online to Good People Break Bad Laws, have a look around. There's DVDs of Battleground Melbourne. You don't have to buy a DVD. It is available to watch for free at battlegroundmelbourne.com. If you haven't seen my documentary about the madness that went down in Melbourne during COVID, you need to watch it. It's won 14 awards around the world and been watched I don't know how many millions of times. That's at battlegroundmelbourne.com. Go and watch it completely free. If you want the DVD, of course, I have to charge you for that. That's available at Good People Break Bad Laws, along with the T-shirts, the hoodies, and the books and the masterclass. And everyone that does choose to get something helps me to keep doing what I do. I like to provide huge amounts of content for free. I provide commentary. I provide perspective. I provide deep dives and slow chats and podcasts, and I do all of that for free. And it is absolutely my pleasure to do that. But I do have to pay bills. And so I have a selection of things that I charge money for, and those that want to, those that can, those that feel that they want to for whatever reason. I really appreciate those of you who do choose to do that. If you can't, or if you just don't want to, then please continue to enjoy everything that I put out for free, and please just enjoy it, share it, make the most of what it is that I do. That's it for our slow chat, our podcast tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've had a great time. Susie says, is there a Battleground Melbourne hoodie? There was one. I discontinued it. I don't know if there's enough interest. If there's enough interest, I might be tempted to bring it back. Hey, do you want, should I do this? I'm working on a redesign of Good People Break Bad Laws, the hoodie, the T-shirt design. Do you want to see that? Do you want me to? It'll take me a minute to get it. You'd have to hang around for another 2 or 3 minutes if you want to see that. Let me. I've got it. It's on my phone. It was sent to me by Brad and the team at AussieBot Studio. They're amazing. They do all my merch stuff for me. I only have it in. Text form, so I'm going to have to download that and then email it. Actually, no, I can send it to myself in Messenger, and then that'll be on my laptop. And then once it's on my laptop, I can bring it up and I can share it with you. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to bounce this image around different places and different platforms. Facebook.com. Open that back up. Get out of my Topher page into my personal profile. Come on, computer. Don't be slow now. Don't muck around with me now. Can you guys still hear me when I'm on the other tab? Did I freeze for you guys, or was I still visible? Just send me a comment. All right, what do we got? Okay, so that. All right, so let me just break that out, shrink that down a lot. Okay, so I think this is going to work. It's probably not going to be pretty, but if I now go present or share, if I go present, I go share screen, I go a window, and I go that one, and I go share. Come on. That one. There we go. Okay. Ignore all the guff around it. Hang on. Sorry. Let me get rid of that comment. That is a teaser. It's not necessarily the final one, but that is a teaser of where Brad is suggesting maybe we go with the Good People Break Bad Laws concept. So sort of introducing more of the good versus bad, the break. We're probably going to grunge it up a little bit, add a bit of a filter, add a bit of an overlay. Gives it either mud splatter or like paint splatter or something like that in addition to that. And we'll release a line where that is actually on the back of the hoodies rather than being at the moment, everything's kind of on the front because that's how I personally like it. But I know most people actually like it on the back. So we might look at doing something like that. James Bennett says it's too French. It's a French. But everyone else is saying they like it. So James, I think you're being outvoted here. Looks like the general consensus is that people kind of like it. So look, guys, I'm still developing what I do. I'm wanting to improve it. So please send through any suggestions, any thoughts that you have on how I can do what I do better. To those of you that can and choose to support me, I really appreciate it. It enables me to do stuff like this tonight for free and to be able to have these kinds of conversations. And I really appreciate those of you that do support me. So that's all for tonight. goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com, battlegroundmelbourne.com. Watch the documentary for free. And make sure you look up Sean, Not a Guru, and find him and follow his excellent work. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great night, and I will see you Next week, I've tentatively booked in Monica to have a chat about the court case next week. Excuse me. So she and I will talk between now and then and strategize and decide, or she will decide what she wants to do going forward. But she has agreed tentatively, but we've agreed to do a slow chat with her on Thursday of next week. So put that in your diary. And then I've also got a slow chat coming up with Joel Jamal to talk about the Victorian Council elections that are only about 4 or 5 weeks away as well. So I've got a few things coming up. Looking forward to that. I hope to see you next week, all going well. If it does indeed go ahead with Monica. Thank you, Stuart. I will be in Kinglake in 2 Saturdays' time for the, what's it called? Stuart, how fast are your fingers? Remind me what that rally is called. It's about stopping the national park and ensuring ongoing access to parkland for four-wheel drivers, for campers, for fishers, for hunters, for all these different groups of people. So I'm just waiting for, Kinglake, Whittlesea. So Kinglake near Whittlesea, Rolf. Yes, near there. Forest for the People. If you jump onto Facebook, search Forest for the People, and Stop the National Park, either of those two things, you should very quickly start to find a Facebook group. And in that Facebook group, you will find events. Alternatively, you can go to the Libertarian Party social media pages. The Libertarian Party are all over it at the moment, and they've got information about it as well. David Zora says they seem to be taking more and more land from us. They absolutely are, and that's what this is about, is trying to stop that from happening. So, guys, go to Forest for the People, Kinglake West Rally. Stuart has just typed in. I'll put it up here. Forests for the People, Kinglake West Rally. Search for that on Facebook and you'll find information about the rally. I will be there in 2 Saturdays' time. I think that's the 21st, if my memory serves me correctly. It's going to be fantastic. We did one of these in Mansfield only a month and a half, whenever that was, ago. Went really well. Huge number of people. Really important that we have numbers and we can show numbers at these events. We've got people taking photos, we've got people putting out social media, we've got all that stuff going on. We want to show a lot of momentum and a lot of support for this cause. So if you could be there in Kinglake in 2 Saturdays' time, that would be absolutely fantastic. And on that note, I'm finally done. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next week, all going well, for a slow chat with Monica Smith to talk about the court case. Cheers.